Happy hump day, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. We are coming at you live today from Tooele County, Tooele Motor Company, 1141 North Main Street out here in Tooele. One of our Rocky Mountain Chevy dealers who's hooking up with the road home this holiday season for a coat drive, a hat drive, boots, blankets, gloves, anything. You can drop them off at your local Rocky Mountain Chevy dealer. Excuse me. That's not going to be fun to deal with today. Tooele Motor Company is where I want to see you. The Sean O'Connell Show today is not just Sean O'Connell. I have to bail out because I've got PFL duties this weekend, and I got to fly to France, and that means that, well, flights are a pain. And because of that, Bryce Larson of Bryce and Bianucci fame over on our sister station, brother station. Bryce, how are we saying that?
Yeah, either way. Brother station, sister station, doesn't matter.
Sibling station?
Yeah, that one works.
Our step station. Bryce, what a luxury to have a co-host on the show today.
Yeah, that is a nice thing. It sounds like I might have to step in a little bit earlier than that for you if that voice doesn't get right here in a couple minutes.
Got to get this frog out of the throat, that's all. You know how when you drink and you think like that's going to solve your problem, I got the big jug of water. I'm a full Utah here with my Stanley Cup, and the water's not breaking up, whatever that is. Bad news. We have pizza. We have giveaways happening out here at Tooele Motor Company, and we want you to swing out and donate your lightly used or brand new coats, hats, gloves, blankets, whatever can help out the families at the road home. Toys, maybe. Every single year, they pull this caravan from the Rocky Mountain Chevy dealers up to the road home, and man, it's a really, really special thing. So anything that you can spare, anything that you want to contribute to help the families in need through the road home this year, they do great work, and the Rocky Mountain Chevy dealers are happy to be a part of it, as are we here at ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Presenting sponsor on the show today and every day is our friends over at Big Willie's, 1717 South Main, the perfect place for you to host your holiday party, to go watch whatever game that maybe you don't have the television packet for, or you didn't get tickets to. Great food, great drinks, great people. Big Willie's, 1717 South Main. Tell them OC sent you. They treat all of us incredibly well. So, Bryce, you've got your own show with Jordan Bianucci. I've been trying to unpack this Utah private equity partnership that is now one of the main stories nationally in the college sports world and really in the sports world in general, because it is potentially a seismic shift away from what, the formatting of financial contributions to universities and university athletic departments is going to look like moving forward. It does feel like there are plenty of people out there that are going to let Utah be sort of a test case rather than jump on this bandwagon right away. But we've had 24 more hours to kind of unpack this thing. I've had plenty of conversations with people up and around and close to the U and boosters and people in and out of the athletic department. And it's certainly a mixed bag, but it's a cautiously optimistic mixed bag at this moment. If this were anything besides private equity, I think people would be like, well, yeah, it makes sense. You gotta have an owner. You gotta have something. But the fact that it is a private equity firm seems to be the number one hang-up for people.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's because when private equity gets into college sports, they're doing it for a business purpose, a business reason, and they're looking for a return on their investment. That means they're looking to make money. And if this thing doesn't make money going forward, then there's going to be an issue down the road. And so that's where the hang-up comes. That's where people are kind of, what you mentioned, cautiously optimistic in seeing how this all turns out, because where is that money going to come from? Who's going to be affected by it? Ross Dellinger in his report yesterday when this all came down with Yahoo Sports mentioned, well, they're going to look for places to find that money in ticket sales, in different concession revenues, and different ways that they can make money and get that return on investment. And so I don't know if that's necessarily a great thing for the consumer of the sport, because it sounds like prices might be going up a little bit.
Well, you have to remember that there's an economic model for this that has existed for a long time, and it hasn't been private equity doing this. it has been pro sports, right? Like owners in pro sports, there's a lot of owners in pro sports who don't give a you-know-what about the sport itself or the team. They're in it because it's a business. They're in it because it's a money-printing license, effectively, when you're an owner in pro sports. And, yes, in a lot of cases, the price increases are passed on to the consumer, and that's where the profitability comes from. But there's another big thing here that hopefully Otro Capital and the expertise and the operational expertise that they have, because you heard Spence talking about this a lot on his show yesterday. These are people who have sports experience that were involved with, the Cowboys and New York franchises and things like that. Hopefully, and again, this is the cautious optimism, the business sponsorship aspect of this and the business partnership aspect of this is a place where they can hopefully drastically increase revenues. In that case, you don't have to pass on the cost of doing business directly to the consumer as aggressively. I mean, I'm not pretending that ticket prices are not going to go up.
Yeah.
They were going to go up even if you didn't partner with private equity, by the way. And I asked the poll question in that regard because I want to know where people stand with this. You're absolutely correct. The reaction initially for a lot of people is like, whoa, private equity is going to come in and they're going to do what the Warriors have done since they moved from Oracle over to Chase Center in San Francisco. They're going to be like, well, now we got to pay for this arena. Now we got to get this back. We got to get back in the black. It's what the 49ers did when they went from Candlestick to Levi's, right? Personal seat licensing fees. All this stuff gets thrown in there, and the consumer doesn't love it.
Yeah.
That's you, the fan, by the way. That's you listening. That's me trying to bring my family to games. You're like, I don't necessarily love this. The hope is, and I know that there's going to be a very serious effort in this regard. I talked to people up on the Hill yesterday after the show was over that, this Otro Capital, they want to bring in outside money or it is all outside money now, but they want to bring in money that comes from, Tooele Motor Company, the Rocky Mountain Chevy dealers. They want to bring in these types of partnerships to help mitigate some of that risk for you, the consumer. And so, keep a close eye on it, I guess is what I'm saying as a fan, so that you're not just waiting for that doom and gloom email where they're like, your tickets are now 4 times what they were last year.
The one thing that comes to mind when you bring this up is that it allows you to have more national connections. So whereas in the past the Utahs and the BYUs of the world, they were trying to really dig into people here in the state of Utah that own companies to try and fund those corporate sponsorships. Now it's a lot of the deltas. It's a lot of the national brands, and this gives you a national company to work with that has those connections nationwide to bring in that national money to the University of Utah to try and get those sponsorships at a national level rather than just a state-run level.
And you saw Taylor Randall's comments yesterday, the media availability. You heard from Mark Harlan, and we're going to get him on the show sooner than later. I promise you we will get that done as soon as we possibly can. They want us to focus on the big picture here, right? You can tell by the way that they're talking. They want us to focus on, hey, this is a long-term plan for the health of the athletic department and, by the way, also for the health of the university. Because as the price of pool and the price of poker, I think is how Bill Riley used to say it, goes up, at some point athletic departments are going to have to make decisions on, look, football and basketball are safe. They're always going to be safe. Whether you're competitive or not is a completely different conversation. But schools out there are not going to cut their football programs. That's the revenue producer. You were going to get to a point, and we have already at some universities been at the point where, man, we got to get rid of this particular program because our athletic department can't ask the overall mission of the university to provide money for this as well. The overall mission of the University of Utah, that is lost here on a sports talk station 99% of the time, is to be a healthcare system, a medical school, a research institution. That's what Taylor Randall cares most about. If you can strengthen that mission while also maintaining athletics, which is incredibly, incredibly important to you and to your kind of forward-facing public perception and those types of things, if you can maintain all that medical stuff, all of that research stuff, without having to split off a few pennies here or there for athletics, and you do that by bringing in private equity, from a university perspective, this feels like a really good and really big picture win. From an athletic perspective, I get it. People are like skeptical, and they're a little bit, it feels like a little bit riskier, but this is not, we keep talking about the 5 to 7 year wavelength here. After listening to the university president and the athletic director yesterday, I don't think they have any intention of this being a 5 to 7 year plan where then Otro Capital cashes back out. I think they want this to be the model that they continue under for the next 40 years.
And this has been the conversation that we've gone back to, talking about the SEC and Big Ten wanting to, at some point, break away from college athletics and maybe even go into their own venture of being separate from the universities, running it like a professional sport. This is the first step. This is creating an entity that is separate from the nonprofit university. This is a for-profit entity. This is a different company that they're going to run these contracts and different things through. And this is really the first of its kind. So it's really interesting that the University of Utah was the one that took those steps forward rather than, we see a SEC or a Big Ten team do it. Now there are a couple of schools out there that have created the other entities that are more so for sponsorships and different things like that, and they are working in for-profit, but the private equity money is what's different here with University of Utah versus, the Michigans and the Kentuckys of the world that have also tried this in the past.
You brought up the Big Ten, and that's another many, many interesting things about this, but this is one of the interesting things for me is that, the Big Ten, they voted on this. They're like, we want to accept private equity money. And it was Michigan and USC that stepped in and kind of blocked it.
Yeah.
And they're massive brands. They're big heavyweight brands in that, and had enough influence to say, let's just pump the brakes on this a little bit. But there was also a threat during that situation that USC and Michigan were going to be then left behind. I mean, there were conversations happening where the Big Ten was like, look, Maryland needs this. Illinois needs this. You might not, Michigan. You might not, USC. But if there's private equity that wants to come in and infuse these athletic departments so they can stay competitive, if Northwestern wants to take money to help pay for that Lakeside Stadium that they just finished up, you don't get to say anything about it. This was a really, really heated and a really, really intense situation in the Big Ten, and because it didn't end up going through, it was less of a story. If it had been Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Oregon that made this announcement before the University of Utah, I can't help but wonder how different the reaction nationally would have been if the Big Ten as a conference, who explored this, by the way, to the ends of their earth. They were going all the way through until it finally got not stopped, but paused. I think that the conversation's a lot different today.
Yeah, it's interesting how that influence can change in a lot when you get the big brands involved in it. The Big 12 went through the same situation. I remember 2 years ago sitting at Big 12 Media Days, and that conversation about a Luxembourg-based private equity firm trying to talk with the Big 12 conference as a whole, and the Big 12 voted against it too. So there was a conference wide look at it to see if that was going to be an option, and no one decided they wanted to go through with it, except for now Utah has decided to do it on their own.
It's so nice to have Bryce on here because a lot of times I'm shouting my questions into the void, and I'm hoping that the listeners give something back, or that James gives something back.
They're yelling at you in the car?
Yeah, hopefully they're not yelling too aggressively at me. But, I mean, again, you have to let this thing play out, and I really want the conversation to continue, not just for this week because it's good content on the radio, but when we start to see what's happening with other schools maybe adopting a similar model, or with other schools saying, heck no, we're not going to touch that until we see how it happens at Utah. That's going to be informative for me. Is private equity more or less risky? Is this deal specifically for the University of Utah more or less risky than the typical system of like bagmen, big money boosters having, from an influence standpoint? Is it more or less risky in your mind? Because the way that the language is in these contracts, they don't get to touch what these teams are doing, what the gymnastics coach says, what the basketball coaches say. Otro Capital doesn't get to tell you, I don't want that quarterback to be your quarterback anymore. It's written out. It's in the fine print and the bold print, right? Boosters do say those things. And they have said those things. And there's many examples at different schools. Troy Aikman came public with this.
Yeah.
Said, I wrote a big check. Kid played 1 year, didn't even give me a thank you. I'm done with that kind of stuff. So we talk about the risk, and it is a worthy conversation to have. We talk about the risk of if this doesn't go well for Otro Capital and University of Utah Athletics. But there's risk on the other side of it, too, on the current model that everyone else has adopted, too.
Yeah, there definitely is. And you look at the Texases of the world, right? A lot of people said there were too many cooks in the kitchen for the longest time when Charlie Strong was there, when Mac Brown was there, and that was the issue. Too many donors getting in on the conversation inside the locker room trying to tell Charlie Strong what to do.
Do you think that Penn State fired James Franklin because he only wins 10 games a year?
No.
It's because boosters were just like, I want a national championship or you don't get my money anymore.
Yeah.
And are they closer now to winning a national championship because they fired James Franklin?
Probably not.
Matt Campbell, good luck to you. You got 3 years to win a natty or they're going to fire your butt too.
There's a reason why they struck out on so many coaching candidates too. All those coaches are very aware of what pressures come with that head coaching job and who is in that room telling you what to do in that situation. I think coming back to the private equity conversation, it was interesting that they made it very clear that Mark Harlan is over the committee that oversees this company, and they report to him as the athletic director, and he has the final say because that's important for the University of Utah.
Majority control remains with Utah Athletics on all the Utah Athletics stuff. When it comes to raising funds, and yes, probably your ticket prices, that's where the private equity firm and their board seats are going to have a lot of influence. And that's kind of the point, right? The other thing about this is if Utah Athletics, and there's a lot of people who've been saying this, you know, whether you're a detractor or a supporter of Utah Athletics, you read the 10K that came out, you read the statement that came out at the end of last fiscal year, and it was like, hey, this is a deficit year for us. Television contract isn't as robust as you've got in the Big Ten or the SEC. Ticket sales are incredibly strong, Bryce. You know this. But still, we're operating at a deficit right now. Why did this private equity firm get into the business of Utah Athletics specifically if it's not a money-making business, if you're a deficit business? That's where the big picture thing and the long play becomes a lot more interesting. Yes, on this show, I'm going to dive into what it means for Devin Dampier and the offensive line he has next year. But also, we'll get to that here in just a second, by the way. But also, Otro Capital is not bringing in $500 million over the next 5 to 7 to 10 years, thinking that, yeah, this is going to continue to be the type of department that loses $25 million per year or that breaks even. That's not the business they're in. Do they know something that we don't know? Are they reading tea leaves that we've kind of like tried to interpret where, hey, the Big Ten and the SEC, they're taking this thing over. Notre Dame, they're going to absorb this thing. That pro model, that minor league system that we're discussing, we're just the first movers here, and we are going to be here to position Utah to make sure they end up on the right line or the right side of that line of demarcation. That has been a major thing for me for the last 7 years.
Yeah.
Is Utah in the right spot when it becomes one super conference? Is BYU in the right spot when the whole college football world decides here's who has a place at the table and here's who doesn't? Because it would be devastating if you ended up where Oregon State and Washington State ended up in the last round of realignment.
Right.
You got kicked out. You got thrown off the carousel. Can Otro Capital keep you on the right side of that line? I think that it's maybe just as much about that as anything else.
No doubt. Yeah, this is about positioning yourself for 10 years down the line when the new TV contracts come up and the SEC and the Big Ten decide they're going to a professional model because they're mad about, and Notre Dame especially, they're mad about the college football playoff committee. They're mad about how everything is going. They don't have as much say. All of a sudden, James Madison and Tulane have 2 playoff spots instead of 2 ACC schools. So all of this is coming to a head to the point where they want to split off and continue to control all of the power, and they want to be able to have a say when it's all said and done. That's where this is going, and the ability to have that foresight and put Utah in a better position when that comes, and they can say, we've already been in this for 7 years, and we're ready to go right now today to step into it. There's no transition period at all. That's what they're looking at.
So I've done my best, which is probably not that good, trying to figure out the biggest risk for Utah athletics here and the greatest benefit for Utah athletics here. And that's where the crux of the question is for me. That's where it all comes to a head. The partnership with Otro Capital, I think, ends up being kind of just like a nothing burger, a net neutral, until we get to that moment in college football, that moment in college athletics, where the SEC and the Big Ten and Notre Dame and, let's be honest, probably Miami, Florida State, North Carolina, whoever are the big boy brands in the ACC that get their invite. When that happens, does this move that you made in 2025 translate to an invitation for the University of Utah? I think that's, for me, the biggest point of this. And I know that you heard what Mark Harlan said and what Taylor Randall said. This is an opinion thing for me, that this is what it ends up being all about. Have you kept up with the Joneses because of the private equity money? Probably yes. Are your facilities on par? Probably yes. Is everything that you had to do and all of the piece of your department that you had to be willing to sell, is that improved and bringing in more revenue now to now where you're an appealing partner in the new partnership that doesn't include Brett Yormark sitting at a table and criticizing Pete Bavacqua of Notre Dame? I think that's what this is really going to be about. And I think the giant risk in the private equity world for Utah is if you get to that moment and you don't get the invite, right? You end up being Oregon State or Washington State, which feels incredibly unlikely if you have this money available to you in the interim. But if for whatever reason you don't get that, that's when Otro Capital says, well, now you're on the small television contract instead of the one that we were buying into.
Yeah.
Because if you get that invite, now your television revenue distribution, instead of being $30 million a year, is $100 million a year. And that's when the private equity bros are just like, see, this is why we bought in 10 years ago. This is why we bought in 5 years ago, because we knew we could make this happen. We could help you make this happen. And then everyone's pleased because you're on the right side of the line and they're making their money. That's where this partnership comes down for me.
Well, you mentioned the risk of it all. I want to know whose Social Security number they've got down and whose door they're knocking on when the bill comes due, if that's the case. If it comes down to it and they don't get into that big conglomerate of college football, that's when the private equity, if they haven't gotten their return on the investment, that's when they start asking, where's the money at, guys? Where's the money that we were promised? And that kind of gets a little bit awkward when you have to tell them, well, that TV money just walked out the door. So, yeah. Well, and that's the risk that they're staring down here in the next 10 years.
But that's also the risk for Otro Capital, because if you're Utah Athletics in that situation, you're saying, well, where's your expertise on the corporate sponsorships and on the ticket sales and on the other streams of revenue that were supposed to put us in a position where we were undeniable for this? For me, that's the boiling point in this whole thing. Will there be growing pains? Will there be hidden benefits that we're not anticipating right now? Absolutely. On both sides of this, we're going to be like, oh, wow, look at that. I didn't know that this infusion of capital was also going to mean that, the new Huntsman Center, wherever they decide to move that and how they decide to build that, is going to be the best indoor arena in gymnastics and basketball. I didn't think of that because I was so focused on football and things like that. Like, there's going to be some hidden benefits here. There might be some hidden risks, but I think we will make the final judgment on whether or not this is good or bad for Utah athletics if and when that decision is made where the SEC and the Big Ten and Notre Dame are like, NCAA, we're breaking away from you. We're doing our own thing. We're bringing Texas Tech, BYU, Utah, and Arizona State with us from over here. Colorado, you're out because Deion's been gone for 5 years. We're bringing Florida State and Miami and North Carolina and Clemson, and this is all we want. If you're on the right side of that line, I promise you every one of us is going to be like, hey, how about Mark Harlan and Taylor Randall setting us up for this 5 years ago with the partnership with Otro Capital? And if you're on the wrong side of that line, you're going to be crying into your Cheerios.
Yeah.
We've just solved your problems. All the questions you have on the private equity partnership, me and Bryce figured it out.
You know, the one thing that I do, last thing that I want to bring up, is the BYU side of it that you just mentioned. I am curious to see if BYU would ever consider something like this, because you mentioned on the sponsorship side, they're very careful with who they align themselves with at BYU. And I'm not sure that if you just, farmed that out to a private equity group, that they would go out and find the right BYU companies that they want to align themselves with. And I don't know that that's ever a case that BYU would ever start going down the path of.
Well, I'm going to get myself in trouble with some listeners who get real dicey, who get real sensitive about me talking about the church and financial things. Let me make it clear. Let me preface. I think they can do whatever they want with their money. I think that they mostly are – not even mostly. I think they're a net benefit to the world with how charitable they are and things like that. But when the church and BYU make a decision about this, they're going to be deciding, are we going to use our own investment arm? Because they have an investment company.
Right.
They have an equities company. Are we going to use our own investment arm to the benefit of BYU athletics? They're not going to say, Otro Capital, do you want to get in? Because like you said, they have to control all of it. They have to control
who they align
with. You can't. OnlyFans ain't sponsoring BYU athletics. You know what I mean?
Not even that far down the road. Like, even, Bud Light. They're not going to do a partnership with Bud Light.
Exactly. So it's a different calculus for BYU because of who BYU is and who BYU is already associated with. And right now, the church has not said we're gonna deploy the full weight of our business to BYU athletics. We're going to let BYU athletics be its own self-sustaining thing. And we're going to have our boosters, like our private boosters, spend their private money to help BYU athletics. But maybe one of those private, maybe cookie guy wants to be like, hey, can I actually have a little ROI here?
Yeah.
I love giving my money and having a write-off every year, but could I maybe buy in and have a little ROI? That's another thing, by the way, on the Utah one. I did some digging. You, the fan, it's not going to be a Green Bay Packers situation. I'm not going to be able to buy a piece
not
of Utah
a publicly
athletics.
traded. It's not the Atlanta Braves.
They can't and they won't solicit public funds that way. There are major players that are already contributors to the university that are going to be offered an ability with board seats and things like that. But that ain't for me and you. That's for the people who are already deeply invested in the University of Utah and in the athletic department. So if that was ever a question for people. Scott Padgett, the former Jazzman and Mississippi State assistant coach, is going to join us here in just a second. Before we take a break here at Tooele Motor Company, where we're hoping you can bring in donations for the road home, boots, coats, hats, gloves, anything that families need in the warm time or the cold time of year to keep them warm. The Rocky Mountain Chevy dealers are partnering with the road home. Bring in whatever you got. We've got pizza to give away. We've got a chance for you to enter and win Utah men's basketball tickets. And this time of year, as the cold weather's coming, it should be here already, but the weather's going to get real bad. You need to make sure that your windows are taken care of and that you have energy-efficient home. Advanced Windows is the best replacement window company in the state of Utah, in the western United States, and maybe in all of the United States. 801-850-9100, $2,500 off, 10 windows or more. Tell them that OC sent you. They're going to hook you up. The process is going to take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks from when they come out to your house, they measure your windows, to when they install the new ones. And just like that, your energy efficiency goes up, which means your energy costs go down. Also, it's going to beautify your home, increase resale value, and the lifetime warranty on those windows is serviced by a team right here in Salt Lake City. No middleman, no, hey, that wasn't our problem, that was the installer. It's all one company. They all take care of it. Advanced Window Products. The mayor of Sac Lake City, Nate Orchard, is running that company with his guy, Jake Weber. You can trust them both. You can trust me. 801-850-9100 or advancedwindows.com. Scott Padgett is next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show featuring Bryce Larson today on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show, featuring Bryce Larson today. I'm going to bail out of here pretty soon to go take care of some PFL duties, which means Bryce is going to hold it down the rest of the day as we're here at Tooele Motor Company, 1141 North Main Street in Tooele. Rocky Mountain Chevy dealers are partnering with the Road Home. They're doing a big donation drive, coats, hats, boots, gloves, blankets, socks, anything that you can provide to help out families in need this holiday season. Drop them here at Tooele Motor Company or any of your participating Rocky Mountain Chevy dealers. That's Carl Malone, Murdoch, John Watson, Larry H. Miller Murray, Sky Chevrolet down in Provo, all up and down the Wasatch Front. Utah men's basketball this weekend at the Delta Center in the Salt Lake Showcase, taking on Mississippi State. We've got a former Jazz man who's an assistant coach now on that Mississippi State staff. And Scott Padgett is kind enough to give us a few minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Coach, Scott, welcome. How are you, sir?
Doing well. How are you guys doing?
Doing all right. It's been how long has it been since you've been in Salt Lake City, since you've come back to Utah?
The last time I was in Salt Lake, I was actually at Manhattan College, and we played there and got the Utes drubbed us. So that would have been like four years ago.
Okay, all right. You've done a couple different stints at Manhattan College. Is that right?
Yes. My college roommate is the coach there, so I've had a couple of different runs with him.
Oh, nice. That's cool. I would be remiss if I didn't mention your first familiarity. I'm assuming it was your first familiarity with the state of Utah when, as a member of a certain Kentucky team, you broke all of our hearts. But I guess we should forgive you for that this far removed.
The first time I actually ever came to Utah was in 1997 with Kentucky. We played the first 2 rounds there versus Montana and Iowa. And then the 2 rounds later, we played Utah in San Jose, and that was Keith Van Horn's last game. So that's my first run with, and then, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which side you're on, I feel like we've always found a way to either as a player at Kentucky or as a coach where we've made our way back or played against Utah in one way or another.
All right, so now you come as an assistant coach as part of this Mississippi State staff, Salt Lake City Showcase, back in your old stomping grounds, right? Back at the Delta Center, and it is called the Delta Center again, which is nice. And you'll take
I never
on.
Stopped calling it that.
Yeah, neither did I, and I've lived here the whole time, and I always just called it the Delta Center, which was probably incorrect. But you're now part of the staff, taking on a guy that I imagine you have some familiarity with it, having been in the coaching circles this long. What do you know? How well do you know Alex Jensen?
Well, obviously, played against him at Utah. He was a little bit young, a couple years younger than me, but obviously he was a starter on the team that we played in '98 in the finals. To me, he was that guy that kind of glue piece that year where, like, if he could go out there and get 15 to 20 on a given night, but most nights he was guarding and playing tough, hard-nosed defense. He was getting the ball moving. He was setting good screens. He was diving on the floor. He was doing all the things that help, teams win and win at a high level. And then obviously I was in Utah later on, and, he had 2 really, really good years individually. Like, obviously their team was still good, but he had 2 statistically really good years after that where he was, I think conference player, the conference tournament MVP and all league and things like that. And then, just have kind of kept up with him over the years, know about his history of, in the league, coaching with the Jazz and different things. And, just watching his team, you can see he's starting to, put his stamp on what they are. I think they're a team that's growing. It's obviously new coach, new program, new team, all that stuff. So that you see them and you watch the film of them, you say, all right, they're getting better every game. And so it's going to be a battle for us.
I've asked Alex this, and I'm going to ask you because, you've been at all levels of basketball. You've spent a lot of time in the NBA, and now you're coaching college basketball, which is, of course, it's more professionalized than it was back when you played college hoops. And when we were – it's more professional than what we're used to as longtime fans of the sport. But now guys are paid, and guys can be free agents every single year if they want to, which is unique in the college sports space. So how close is it to professional basketball, to the NBA now, in the way that guys approach preparation, their bodies, etc., given that a lot of players are paid professionals at the college level?
I think it's getting closer. The one thing I guess probably, I'd like to see is, college basketball players are free agents every year. Professional NBA players aren't. They have contracts. Some of them are, if you get a 1-year deal. But there's a lot of guys that work on multi-year deals. And, and it's not a matter of them moving anything. Just as a coach, you would like to just have some continuity, more continuity to your program. I'm sure fans would probably like to see more continuity to programs. But it's getting more and more professional every year. That's the way it's really, kind of heading. So who knows? Maybe you'll see more of that down the line of multi-year deals and things like that.
Well, let's focus on this weekend at the Delta Center. Your Mississippi State team coming in, taking on the Runnin' Utes. What do you expect from this matchup? Tell me what you think or how you think your team matches up against Alex Jensen's squad.
Well, I think the headline matchups will be, Terrence Brown, Don McHenry, Our guards, Jaden Epps. If who knows with Josh Herbert if he's ready, if he can play, that would be, I think, the headline matchup. Those two guards versus our two guards would be the headline. And what usually happens when that's the headline is somebody else that's not in the headlines is going to be the difference in the game. And when you watch Utah, I'd say the first two guys that come to mind for me would be Dawes and Seydou Traore, who actually Seydou played with my son at Manhattan.
Oh, cool. As a guy,
I think those are the guys that will look to, that you'll have to keep in check and not let go off, because I think everybody would expect the guard matchup to be a battle.
We had Coach Jans on the other day, and I asked him about this. I wanted to ask you because we saw you deal with it yourself at the NBA level and in college basketball. When you're trying to improve your free throw percentage, give me a sense. Mississippi State as a team, it hasn't been a strength so far this year. Give me a sense of just how challenging that is from a mentality standpoint for the whole team and for individual players, because, we, the fans, like the average person, loves to roar about it. Oh, what are you doing? It's a free throw. It's supposed to be easy. And it obviously requires a certain level of skill that most people don't have. So when you're trying to improve that as a coach now and when you were a player and with your players, how do you manage it? How difficult is it?
Well, I mean, first off, again, with some of the other things is we have 11 new guys to the program this year, right? So some people come into your program with the ability to just shoot 85%, and some come in and, that aren't as good as shooters, right? And so you try to recognize the ones that need the most help, and you try to work with them the most. But sometimes, just being real, if the guy's 24 years old and he's shooting 50%, it's not like somebody hasn't tried to work with him before, so you keep working on it and you keep working on it. But sometimes, the reality is what you are as a 24-year-old, you're probably close to what you're going to be, Shaq for years, right?
Yeah.
They brought in every kind of guru you could think of, but sometimes the muscle memory you built up in a negative way is hard to overcome. And, so we work with it. It's crazy, but we work on free throws literally every day. And I try to keep it, when I talk to guys about free throws, keep it as simple as possible. And I don't want to rush, but at the same time, I don't think somebody needs a 5-dribble routine and all that, because the longer the ball's in your hands, if you're a free throw shooter that struggles, the more you're going to think about missing a free throw. So I'm a one dribble and up kind of guy,
Yeah, Scott, I want to ask you about your relationship with head coach Chris Jans, and just kind of where you guys got acquainted, and then what intrigued you about his coaching style that made you want to jump on staff with Jans there at Mississippi State.
Well, I had a guy who worked for me at Sanford when I was the head coach. His name is Jake Hedrick, and Jake is one of those guys that kind of knows everybody in the business, and he knew Coach Jans very well because of their times overlapping in different places. Jake had been the head coach at Chipola Junior College, and previously Jans had been the head coach there before too. So they had a relationship, and Jans was looking for somebody that could help with the offensive side of the ball, and Jake kind of introduced us. I was a guy, as a head coach, I felt like I was really good on the offensive end, and as a coach, you always want to keep working to get better. And Jans is one of the best defensive coaches in the country, so it made a lot of sense for me to come here and try to learn from him and try to improve myself as a coach. And then just being back in the SEC, kind of, this is the area where the Southeast is where I'm from. And, it made a lot of sense for me.
Where is your Utah Jazz jersey now, Scott?
I've got about 12 of them, and when you get into coaching, you move a lot. So, to be honest with you, it's in a box. When I was the head coach at Sanford, I had it hanging in my office. But you don't get as big as offices and stuff like that when you're an assistant. And I've moved around a lot, so it's in a box right now.
All right. In a frame in a box or just loose?
I've got one frame that I think I got because I think you had like 3 a year. Like we used to have purple, white, and black, right? So you had 3 a year, and I was there for 4 years. So one of them is framed, and then the rest of them are all in a box somewhere.
Nice. Which one did you decide to frame? Purple, white, alternate?
Oh, the black mountains, man. I used to love the alternative black uniform that we had with the mountains on it. So that was my favorite.
You know, that's actually a great choice. You're a man of good taste, if nothing else, Scott. Appreciate you giving us some time on the show today. Well, I'll say that for you. Appreciate you giving us some time on the show. Enjoy Salt Lake again, and we'll hopefully chat again soon down the road.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Scott Padgett, former Jazzman, Mississippi State assistant basketball coach. The Bulldogs take on your running Utes in the Salt Lake Showcase this weekend at the Delta Center. That's coming up on Saturday. It is not part of your season ticket package, so SeatGeek, UtahUtes.com. Go find yourself some tickets. Get out there. Support Alex Jensen and his crew.
It's going to be a fun day at the Delta Center. There's 2 other games earlier. Utah Valley takes on UC Santa Barbara at 12, and then Utah State's going to take on Illinois State at 3 p.m. as well. Loaded slate.
It's a big slate. Salt Lake Showcase, showcasing the basketball, and obviously, hopefully we have a beautiful day like the one today. We're at Tooele Motor Company, 1141 North Main Street in Tooele. Come out with your donations for the road home through our Rocky Mountain Chevy dealers. The partnership goes strong every single year. They bring a whole caravan of donations to the road home and just lights things up over there for the families in need. All right, one last segment with Bryce and myself, and then I got to get out of here. Bryce will carry it the rest of the way on the show. We spent a lot of time in the first segment talking about kind of the bigger picture stuff with this equity partnership with Otro Capital coming in to infuse some money into Utah athletics. And that's where that's where Mark Harlan and company want us to be focused. Taylor Randall and company want us to be focused. It is a big picture play. It is a long-term health of the university, health of the athletic department type of play. But you, the fan, and me, having come out of a regular season of Utah football where they kind of returned to prominence with that 10-win season, I'm looking at this transfer portal looming in a couple of weeks, and I'm wondering if this money is going to be available to make sure that you get guys and that you keep guys. And I had a couple conversations again yesterday and this morning. Even if you're skeptical of this partnership, I'm going to tell you why in 3 minutes. I'm going to tell you why you should be happy about it in December of 2025. It's the Sean O'Connell Show featuring Bryce Larson on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Sean O'Connell Show featuring Bryce Larson today. He's going to take over for me here in a few minutes. I got to get on a flight. 1141 North Main Street in Tooele, in partnership with Rocky Mountain Chevy Dealers and the Road Home. We're doing a coat, hat, blanket, pillow, personal care items drive. Come give your donations to the folks here at Tooele Motor Company. Test drive a couple of the cool vehicles, maybe drive away with something. It is that time of year where, we always see the television commercials. They've got like a perfect puppy and two perfect kids, and the handsome husband hands the beautiful wife a pair of keys, and they walk out into the driveway of their postmodern house, and there's this giant bow on a car. Why don't you do that this year? All right? Tooele Motor Company can help you out. They'll even give you a giant bow. Actually, I shouldn't make that promise. I don't know if they have any. They have one. There's one at least here in the showroom. But test drive things out here at Tooele Motor Company. Bring your donations with you. And then as you go through life with that vehicle, when you need new tires, Big O Tires can hook you up. $100 instant savings on 4 select in-stock tires with installation. That goes all the way till January 4th. That's a deal happening right now. 12 or 6-month financing on purchases of $1,200 or more for 12 months. 6 months for $1,200 or more as well. They've got Big O service card, the credit card, and it's not just tires anymore at Big O. Anything you need done in their garage, locations all up and down the Wasatch Front. Tell them OC sent you. They're going to hook you up. But right now is the time to take advantage of the holiday savings. $100 off instantly on 4 select in-stock tires, courtesy of our friends here at Big O. All right. So there's the macro of this private equity thing, and that's really the important stuff. And I was talking to some players. I was talking to some coaches. The micro also matters, Bryce Larson, because the world that you live in right now as a college football fan, as a college basketball fan, as a college football player and coach, is that free agency is coming. The transfer portal window is opening. Free agency already exists, obviously, when those transfer portals open. It's the one that they've settled on, the singular one that they've settled on in the rules now for college football is 2.5 weeks away, right? And it's going to remain open, and the tampering's already happening, and most people will probably make their announcement on where they want to be in the first couple of days of that thing. Some people are going to leverage for more money and things like that. That's where the micro of this financial influx comes into play for me, because if you want to remain competitive, this year's budgets are already figured out with stuff that Utah's been involved in for the better part of a year now. But in the future, when those phone calls are coming in for your best players, when you're promising freshmen like Bird Ficklin and J.J. Buchanan, and fill in the names on any roster on any team in the country, you have to have money to pay those guys. And that is what Otro Capital is going to try to infuse up front and then obviously continue to bring in for Utah Athletics over the length of this partnership, to where you are not having to ball on a budget, to where you're not a bargain team, where you're doing more with less. As cool as it is and as proud as you should be about achieving more or overachieving based on where you're at from a financial standpoint, it's a lot better if you don't have to overachieve. If you can just achieve. And that's where Oregon's at. That's where USC's at. That's where Ohio State is at. These calls are happening right now. And like Devin Dampier, that's a guy that people in the country want. Bird Ficklin wants your guys right now. Jonnu Hall, who ended up being your leading tackler, people are calling him. Wayshawn Parker is being pursued aggressively right now. Extrapolate that out, Bryce, for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
You need this money for that reason on the micro level.
And it takes me back to a press conference that Kyle Whittingham did a couple weeks ago, where in that press conference he was asked about Bird Ficklin and Devin Dampier and whether or not he's going to try and retain both of them. And he kind of deferred the question to, well, we're going to have to find out on the administration side if there's going to be enough money for both of them to stick around. And he even brought that up. He's like, really, that's not under my purview because we have a GM. We have a guy that is going to pay him and hopefully keep him around, but essentially said that he'd love to keep both of them. That right there shows you that I mean, that was like with 2 weeks left in the season
that
he had suggested that. And so they're already trying to look forward to retaining these types of guys. And you just wonder when that $500 million comes in so that you can start getting out there and being more competitive in the NIL space and retaining this year's roster, but also going forward, you got to get in that transfer portal with quite a few dudes walking out the door to go to the NFL. You've got to fill their spots and get guys ready to rock and roll for next season too.
Do yourself a favor as a Utah fan, right? The macro, yes, ask your questions, wonder about what it's going to look like, trust the process maybe. The micro level, I want you to go out there and I want you to make a list of the guys you want to retain on this roster, all right? And then I want you to see what positions those individuals play, and then go look at in the Big 12 and we'll just keep it on the West Coast for now. Oregon, USC, Washington, the Big 12 schools, whatever. BYU, say, do they have a need at this position? Does anyone need a running back right now? The answer is always yes, Bryce.
Yeah.
Right? Wayshawn Parker looked really dang good this year, right? Does anyone need a running back right now? If the answer is yes, and it always is, then see who that is. Uh-oh, is it Oregon? Uh-oh, is it Washington? Uh-oh, is it USC? Well, don't say uh-oh anymore, because now with this partnership in place, with this deal, presumably you have the money to compete with those types of offers. And then it becomes more back on Kyle Whittingham's plate to the point you just made. Now, if this Ocho Capital partnership does what it's supposed to do, you now get to answer those questions like a football coach should. Love these guys, want to keep them, and you don't have to question live at a press conference, do I have the resources to keep both of them? On the micro level, that's what this answers. Yes, now you do have the resources.
Yeah. And I wonder how early Kyle Whittingham knew that this Ocho Capital deal was coming down and how that's influencing his decision and what he's going to do in the near future with his coaching position.
We talked about that on the show yesterday, and I tried to make a couple phone calls in that regard as well after the show was over. I mean, you're 21 years into the job, and now they have more money than you ever had.
Yeah, and you're going to walk out the door now?
Like, okay, see ya. It just seems like I don't know. And I don't know how you have that conversation with, like, your family, if your family's been expecting you to retire. You're like, but guys, I could have a $30 million roster next year maybe.
Yeah.
And I don't know, by the way. I don't know if that's the plan for this money and how much capital is coming in on the first infusion and things like that. So I'm being reductive here. But this year's budget already set, they'll figure it out. What about 2026, 2027, 2028? Because you're going to have good football players, you're going to have breakout stars, and the sharks that are swimming around you are always going to want to come and poach those guys from you. And they're closer than they ever were before, and they have more money than they have ever had before. Oregon, Phil Knight is doing fine, okay? And he's getting more and more desperate to see a national championship at Oregon before he passes. So he's not saying no to Dan Lanning when Dan Lanning's like, I like this Wayshawn Parker cat. I need $2 million to go get him.
Yeah.
All right. That's a rounding error for us. We're Nike.
Say less.
Anyway, I'm going to let Bryce take over from here. Thank you to Tooele Motor Company at 1141 North Main Street in Tooele for having us out here. Thank you to the Road Home for letting us be part of this partnership every single year. If you have coats, shoes, boots, gloves, hats, blankets, towels, anything that families at the Road Home could use as they try to get themselves back on their feet, donate it at your Rocky Mountain Chevy dealers. Carl Malone, Murdoch, John Watson, LHM Murray, Tooele Motor Company, Doug Smith, Ken Garf. Everyone works together on this thing, and they drive a whole caravan of goods down to the Road Home and make that donation. Drop them off at any participating dealer. And come grab some pizza at Tooele Motor Company today and say hi to Bryce. I know he's going to do a great job with the rest of the show. Thanks again to James for getting everything set up, for DJ and Chad for getting us out here. Bryce, especially thanks to you for holding it down while I go and get on a plane.
Yeah, safe travels, my friend. Hope you have fun.
It is a work trip, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you're tuning in on ESPN Plus for the PFL Championship fights this weekend, coming at you from Lyon, France. You been to Lyon?
No, I've never been.
This is my third time, but I've only ever been like in the hotel. So I'm gonna have to get out of the hotel and actually enjoy something.
I think the only place that you've been that I've also been is Cape Town, South Africa. That's the only place.
Which is, by the way, the coolest place that I've
Might
been.
be the best place.
It's the best place.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Stay
Beautiful.
tuned. Sean O'Connell Show featuring Bryce Larson the rest of the way. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.
Running along on the Sean O'Connell Show, 1207 up and down the Wasatch Front back here on ESPN 792.1 FM. I'm Bryce Larson, just took over for the Sean O'Connell, and going to still continue to talk a little bit about Utah athletics as we go throughout this program. I'm going to have Alex Markham jumping on with us coming up in just a little bit. He's going to give us the lowdown on what he's hearing up there on the Hill. And in just a couple minutes, we're going to talk with our friend JB Long of the LA Rams to discuss what's going on with the Rams this upcoming weekend in the National Football League. Do want to remind you, we're live down here at Tooele Motor Company, 1141 North Main Street in Tooele. You can come on down, say hello. What we're looking for is donations to the road home. We're looking for lightly used coats, boots, jackets, whatever it may be. We want you to bring them down here to the Tooele Motor Company to help us out with our initiative and the road home. So you could come on down. We're giving away some tickets if you come and join us. Also some pizza if you come on down and stop by. Let's jump out to the ESPN 700 hotline, and we'll welcome in the voice of the LA Rams, a good friend of the program, JB Long. JB, glad to hear from you. How are things going?
Hey, Bryce, thanks for the invitation. Good to catch up with you guys. Hope all is well.
Yeah, everything's going great out here. I want to start off with something about Matthew Stafford, because a couple weeks ago, and I haven't been able to talk to you since, Adam Schefter came out with a report. It was on Unsportsmanlike right here on ESPN Radio, and he mentioned that in the offseason, Matthew Stafford could have been picked up, traded for a second-round pick is what the rumor was out there, and teams didn't think he was worth a second-round pick, so they were only offering third-round picks, but they could have gotten Matthew Stafford. When you hear that about Matthew Stafford and then look at the season that he's having, an MVP season, it's pretty crazy that teams didn't pull the trigger on a guy in the offseason for anything more than a second-round pick.
Yeah, I don't know about those reports, but it is reminiscent of what happened with Lamar Jackson a few years back, right, where he was maybe available for a certain amount of draft capital and no one bit, and then he went and put together a couple of MVP-worthy seasons. So that's exactly what Matthew Stafford has done at age 37, and he's got a big opportunity against his former team this week.
Yeah, he's been incredible for the Rams, and this last week against the Cardinals was talking about his connection with Puka Nacua, of course, the Utah native. What have you thought about Puka Nacua's play so far this year and that connection that they've been able to find, especially with the addition of Davante Adams to that offense this year?
Yeah, I mean, I think Puka should have been an All-Pro last year. The only reason he wasn't is because he didn't play enough games. And I think his underlying metrics all said that he was a top 3 receiver in the National Football League, and he's only built on that this year. I think what Davante has done is put a true X receiver in this offense, not only to draw coverage, but to win from a stagnant position. And that means that all the Rams tight ends they're deploying this season, and Puka as well, can be the chess piece, can be the motion man. We've seen Puka do everything from, insert through a C gap to run a route, to be a part of the run surface and root out a linebacker or safety like he's always done with that frame. And I think probably what people are seeing now is him unlocking the end zone for all the things that he's done statistically. Through his first 2 campaigns, he was not a big touchdown scorer, which fantasy football owners probably get. But this year, run and pass, he has been a weapon in those short areas, even though Davante Adams is leading the National Football League in touchdown receptions because he's really unlocked those short areas.
You mentioned the great play between those two against the Cardinals where the Rams got the 45-17 win, but I want to go back a week prior. It was on the road in Carolina, a 31-28 loss. What happened with the Rams in that week, and what made it tough for them against the Carolina Panthers to be able to get the win on the road?
Yeah, I mean, they dominated that game on a play-by-play basis. Offensively in particular, they moved the ball with ease. Matthew Stafford threw his 28th consecutive touchdown pass early in that game without an interception, and then unfortunately regressed to the mean and had 3 turnovers the rest of the way. So combined with, 3 extra possessions for the Panthers, one of those picks returned for a touchdown. And then the fact that I believe Carolina executed on 7 of their third downs and all 3 of their fourth downs and got 3 explosive touchdowns on those money downs. And it just kind of, these guys get checks too. And when you turn it over 3 times, you lose a turnover battle by a 3 giveaway margin, and you can't get off the grass on defense. That happens in this league. So there was foul weather. There were, some other factors. But I think at its core, you got a team that very well could rally to win that division. and had a lot of familiarity with the Rams. And then you just had Matthew's most unproductive game of the season, you might say. One of those picks was like thrown off, a deflection. And that's life in the NFL. It's never as good or as linear as it looks, even when you're at your best.
He's JB Long, the voice of the LA Rams. You can hear every single LA Rams game on our brother station, 103.9 and 98.3 ESPN, The Fan. The next one is the Lions coming up. 2:25 p.m. kickoff this weekend here in the state of Utah. JB, talk to us about this Lions team that comes into SoFi this weekend. What do the Rams need to do to offset the attack of Jared Goff and Dan Campbell?
Yeah, I mean, ever since Campbell assumed the play sheet, this offense has really ascended to new heights. And I think these are two of maybe the two best offenses in the league, which means it has the potential to be a shootout. And the Lions are well rested, and they're desperate. They've been off since last Thursday. They're 8-5 on the season in a very dense NFC playoff picture. They're on the outside looking in. And so I think from the Lions fan standpoint, it's tough to see a path to a division championship, maybe even a playoff spot if they don't get this win. That being said, they're banged up, especially without their Pro Bowl defensive back, Brian Branch, tore his Achilles last week, as you may have seen or read about. And so I think they are vulnerable against Matthew Stafford and this Rams offense, which also boasts a great rushing attack. And that's probably the undercard, right? It's always going to be Goff and Stafford because of the trade and because they're the quarterbacks. But, I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs is the envy of every running game, and David Montgomery is a great running mate. But here in L.A., Kyron Williams and Blake Corum have been, incredibly productive, and the offensive line for Los Angeles probably unheralded. They might be the best run-blocking offensive line in the league, especially when you look at the three tight end sets that they're getting into and playing bully ball when defenses, try and stay light in their personnel packages against them.
And JB, we talk about Matthew Stafford having an MVP season, and you have to have that if you're going to win football games in the National Football League. But how about the defensive side of the football, and especially Nate Landman? The turnover machine that Nate Landman has become for the Rams this year. If it's not picking off passes from Jacoby Brissett, it's punching out balls and letting his teammate scoop them up. Talk about how Nate Landman has played this year, but also the thought when they brought him in, there's no way they could have known how good he was going to be when they brought him into this organization.
No, I think they had a little bit of inside information. Jimmy Lake, who was a former Pac-12 coach at Washington, was with Raheem Morris and staff in Atlanta, came back to Los Angeles where he's worked a couple of seasons with Sean McVay and thought highly of Nate. And I think Nate was probably just a victim of a couple of things. One is contract age, and two, the change in defensive leadership there in Atlanta. And so when he became available, I think it was a worthwhile dart to throw. And it's paid off in spades. I mean, the Rams don't often invest in the off-ball linebacker position. So the fact that he came in and immediately won the green dot, was named a captain, and was offered and signed a contract extension in the middle of his first season, I'm not sure what more I could tell you verbally to speak to the impact that he's had. He's probably been the defensive free agent signing of the offseason.
Well, not only that, while we're on the conversation of the Atlanta Falcons, we go back to last year's draft. How about the trade with the Atlanta Falcons to get their next year's first-round draft pick for the Falcons to trade into the first round so they can pick up their pass rusher? That trade is looking better and better as the Falcons continue to lose more and more, and that pick goes further up the board this upcoming offseason. So another first-round draft pick to Les Snead and these LA Rams, and he's been making some sneaky good moves in terms of putting this team in the best spot moving forward.
You're not wrong there, Bryce. I mean, it's crazy that there's only been one Rams first-round pick since Jared Goff in 2016, and that was Jared Verse, who won NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year last season. But going into next spring, they have not only the Rams first-round pick, but as you described, the Falcons first-round selection as well. And we were just in Arizona where the Cardinals are really going through it again. And, a lot of their people are starting to look at, draft projections and where are we going to be picking. And someone observed, wait a second, why are we there right next to the Rams in the top 10? How do the Rams have a top 10 pick? And kind of refreshing their memory of what you just described. So a division rival aggravated by that very reality. Look, I don't like to root against Raheem Morris and several Falcons who I admire and like and normally would be a fan of. But in a couple of weeks, the Rams go to Atlanta for a Monday Night Football game in the penultimate game of the regular season, and that could be ginormous, not just in terms of what it could mean for the Rams and their pursuit of the NFC West and the 1 seed, but also a chance to, further inflate that pick that's coming back to you in April.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That's going to be an interesting one coming up here in just a couple weeks. Before they get to that, it is on the road against the Seahawks, though, a Thursday night matchup on Prime Video. And is it possible that this LA Rams team is looking past the Lions a little bit towards that Seahawks game because you got the division opponent, you got the primetime game, might be a little bit of a trap looking forward, even though these guys are professional football players?
Yeah, I think there's too much history with the Detroit Lions, both in terms of personal with Stafford and then also the head-to-head games that they've played, including in the postseason in recent years. So, I understand the temptation. It is human nature. There's no question of the 4 remaining games. That trip to Seattle is the most important one for the Rams' goals. But that being said, I think to have a home opportunity, with the the Fox Tom Brady crew in town, like that's as good as a primetime game, and I think their sole focus will be on Jared Goff and the Lions because, if you don't take care of that one, then there's lesser opportunity, let's say, going to Seattle on Thursday night.
All right, JB, what does your preparation look like as you head towards a home game? Obviously, you're not going to be traveling at all. So when you sit down with MJD and DeMarco Farr, what's the production meetings looking like with those guys? And kind of give us an inside look behind the curtain with the way that you interact with those two.
Yeah, well, first of all, MJD is a coach at his alma mater, De La Salle, one of the powerhouse prep programs in the history of the United States, really. So they've got a playoff game here in Southern California this weekend before we can even get to Sunday and the Detroit Lions. He and I and DeMarco Farr will get together at SoFi Stadium tomorrow morning for our weekly show, our preview show, and then go our separate ways. I've got a basketball game in Las Vegas, Santa Clara, and Arizona State Saturday, and then we'll all gather for Sunday's showdown. So they're the best. I love working with them. I can't believe it's been 10 years of partnership with them, and DeMarco's tenure goes much further back, dating back to his playing days when he was part of the greatest show on turf and won a Super Bowl with the Rams.
Yeah, it's got to be a lot of fun to be able to call games with those two. And, of course, good luck on the call this upcoming weekend. We'll be listening, and we appreciate your time here this morning jumping on with us.
All right, Bryce, thank you again for the invitation. Have a good rest of your show, and looking forward to talking to everyone this weekend.
Appreciate you, JB. That is JB Long, the voice of the LA Rams. And, of course, you can listen to the LA Rams games over on our brother station, 103.9, 98.3 ESPN The Fan, as always. Every single Sunday, you can join us over there and tune into each one of those games with JB Long, Maurice Jones-Drew, and DeMarco Farr on the call. Before we take a break here on the Sean O'Connell Show, I do want to remind you we're live down here at the Tooele Motor Company, 1141 North Main Street in Tooele. You can come on down, help us with some donations to the Road Home. That's part of our Road Home initiative. And joining us now on the Sean O'Connell Show is Jen Murillo, the marketing director right here of the Tooele Motor Company. Jen, glad to have you on. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Thanks for being here.
No problem. We love being here, and we love our initiative that we do with the Road Home every single year. And I want to kind of talk about how the Tooele Motor Company is getting in on it. If people bring down donations to the Road Home, yep. Tooele Motor Company is going to be part of the drive to the Road Home to help with those donations.
Yes. We love being a part of this and just kind of giving back to the communities around us and encouraging others to, kind of help donate some things. So we encourage people to just bring any donation they can so that, we can put it off to a good cause.
And then, of course, with the holiday season being here, a lot of people might be looking for that perfect present, maybe for the special person in their life. What could you tell us about the deals you guys have going on down here at Tooele Motor Company?
December is such a great time to buy a vehicle. So we've got so many deals. We not only have our Chevy dealership here, but we do have some other brands and lots of used cars. So there's really something for everybody. And we're a best price store, so we're just going to give you our best price right up front, make it super easy. Holidays are stressful enough. There's a lot going on, so just come down and get a car and we'll make it easy for you.
Yeah, Sean was here earlier, and he mentioned if you do end up buying a vehicle for the holidays, maybe there's a bow that you guys can throw on top for that.
Oh, for sure.
There
yeah,
you go.
Yeah, the biggest bow we can find will get you.
All right, there you have it. Jen, thank you so much for jumping on with us.
Thank you.
All right, we will take a break here on the Sean O'Connell Show, and coming up around the corner, we're going to have a chat with Alex Markham as we get into some more conversation about the University of Utah. This private equity thing, it's really interesting on how this is all coming down in the last couple of days. So we're going to talk a little bit about the private equity conversation and get into that with Alex Markham, see what he's hearing up there on the Hill. That's all coming up next. I'm Bryce Larson, filling in for Sean O'Connell on the Sean O'Connell Show. We'll be right back on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back into the Sean O'Connell Show. No Sean O'Connell as of right now. He is headed to the airport. He just barely took off. I'm Bryce Larson, taking you through the rest of the Sean O'Connell Show today, live at Tooele Motor Company out here at 1141 North Main Street in Tooele, Utah. Helping out our friends at the Chevy dealership, the Tooele Motor Company, as they're looking for donations to the road home. They're looking for lightly used or brand new hats, boots, coats, jackets. It's all for the kids this holiday season as they try to help out those suffering from homelessness throughout the state of Utah at this moment. And, of course, it's for a great cause because they're going to do the old Chevy dealership, the Rocky Mountain Chevy dealership, and they're going to do the Caravan, taking all of the donations to the road home coming up a little bit later on in the month of December. So shout out to our friends here. You can come on down if you donate anything. I've got some pizza here for you. We're also going to give you a chance to enter in to win some Utes men's basketball tickets and some other tickets that we have on the line here this afternoon. So come on down. Once again, 1141 North Main Street in Tooele at the Tooele Motor Company. All right, let's jump out to get into our next interview. It is our good friend, Alex Markham, that's waiting on the ESPN 700 call-in line. Alex, great to talk with you again. Long time no talk, my friend.
I know, Bryce. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I am doing great. Excited to chat with you a little bit about the happenings in Utah athletics, and there's a lot of things that are going on right now. So let's start with the biggest piece of news. What do you know about this private equity, $500 million being infused into Utah athletics? Tell us what you've heard from those on the Hill, and is this a good thing for Utah athletics moving forward?
You know, I love the deal. You know, it's something that started catching wind of the last couple of weeks. You know, obviously you don't really want to hint too much on it to people or really kind of even drop little nuggets on it because it's one of those things that until it was to the finish line, it could fall apart, you know, and until they felt comfortable enough with the board of trustees and everything, you know, the wheels could have come off. Private equity is one of those things that, I mean, you know, to some it's a dirty word, some it's a word that people run from, right? But how they put this together, I mean, the one thing I will say to Ute fans that might be on the fence with it, okay, is the fact that this initiative was taken up by Taylor Randall. Okay, you know, that just shows you how well thought out it was, how well thought out it's going to be. I mean, the man prides himself when he first, you know, got put into his position as president of the university. One of his biggest things was innovation, right? And another thing was being one of the top 10 public universities out there. You know, obviously the weird thing to this is this removes a large portion of it from the university, and so it's going to be interesting to see how that works. But, you know, the innovation's there, and that's where he was willing to take that risk as long as it was well thought out. It's been a process that's been for almost 2 years. I know I saw a thing today that the president of the NCAA had acknowledged how intrigued he was by it and sees a lot of positives to it, and that it was presented to them before any of this stuff even came out. So tons of positive. I mean, we could do a 3-4 hour show just on this whole thing, you and me going back and forth, right? But the thing that I love about it is how it is. I mean, it's not just a cash infusion, right? I mean, they're creating their own separate entity with this group. This group is, of course, they care about the bottom line and the money, but they're still a heavy influence from university people, you know, people associated or employed by the athletic department, others that they will bring on as well that will fit certain roles, and donors. That's the other big thing. The fact that you can now go to donors, and instead of saying, hey, you know, we're doing this NIL, can we get a tax write-off, you know, Utah is now able to go to them and say, like, hey, invest in this product and invest in your team, and you know you could have some pretty good rewards for it, you know. And so that's something that's going to be extremely impactful going forward. And yeah, like I said, there's so many different nuances that we could just talk about. But everything I've seen to it, yes, there's some risks, but the way that they have laid this out, it was a very, very well thought out plan, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how it unfolds.
Yeah, from a recruiting standpoint, obviously you're in the middle, in the thick of it with the recruiting side of things and the way that the money is spent in terms of NIL and the transfer portal. Well, transfer portal season is right around the corner. Do you have any insight as to whether or not Utah is going to be able to get their hands on some of this money for this next transfer portal go-around and be able to retain the talent but also go out and get new talent for this next year's roster?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the elite talent on the team already, I fully expect them to be able to retain that. I know positive stuff has gone on with Bert Ficklin and Devin Dampier too, and those are two guys. Even though they're both both being quarterbacks, I mean, Bert Ficklin is arguably one of the most absolute valuable guys on the team that you want to keep, right? And so that's a huge thing. It's also going to help the fact that they don't have the second transfer portal window right after spring ball. So with that, though, when it comes to the money aspect of this, that's going to be the big question, okay? Because if you listen to the press conference yesterday, Harlan, in one breath, said that he was extremely excited of what this could do for the NIL, okay? And then a question or two later, he made a comment that they have to abide by the rev share rules, okay? Now, the beauty of this is because it is its own separate entity and stuff like that, and I know that this was a big talking point for BYU fans and even just Big 12 fans in general yesterday. Utah has that flexibility where they are able to use money in this from an NIL standpoint as long as it passes the sniff test to that NIL Go group that is overseeing everything. They have the flexibility to be able to use that with creating this entity. So do I see it happening immediately? That's something I'm still trying to figure out all the details to. Do I see it happening a year from now? Absolutely. You know, it's something that, like, if Harlan was to get there and say, like, hey guys, we need to be cautious on this stuff right now. I'm still trying to figure out the additional stuff outside of the rev share. Let's just play it cool one more year, which, if I'm in those shoes, I wouldn't do that. I mean, everybody sees what all those other schools are out there doing, right? And they're not, and whether it's gray areas or whether it's in the rules, I mean, it's kosher right now. You look at Tech, for instance, right? So I do think at one point, now here, this kind of actually ties into another thing with this. Okay, I do think at one point, if Harlan and the powers that be from Utah's perspective of it are a little cautious on it at first, I do think that that's where the group tied in with Otro will step in and say, look, this is our investment too. We know that we're not going to weigh into much of the football side, but this is one that we will weigh into. This money's here. You guys need to take advantage of it. So it will happen. Will it happen this year? I know Utah is in a very good position for NIL, so they're not concerned on that for this year. But yeah, the windstorm should come, whether it's now or a year from now.
We're talking with Alex Markham right here on the Sean O'Connell Show, live at Tooele Motor Company. You can come on down, bring your donations for the road home, 1141 North Main Street in Tooele. Here for a couple more hours as we continue on the Sean O'Connell Show. Alex, we'll get back to the recruiting conversation in a minute, but I do want to address the elephant in the room. You got to wonder how long Kyle Whittingham has known about this project coming down the pipeline. You got to think that they would have informed him a little while before all of this actually came out. And the biggest question that I have about that, do you think this influences Kyle Whittingham's decision to stay or to go and hang it up in his career? Because you got to think, in his entire time at Utah, he's never had this opportunity with this amount of money to go out and work with and get this type of roster and that type of talent. Do you think this new adoration, this new news about the private equity money coming into the athletic department changes the mind of Kyle Whittingham and what he decides to do after this season?
Yeah, I've got to be a little bit careful on all that stuff because there's a lot of moving pieces behind the scenes right now, right? To the point where that'll ultimately factor into everything that he decides to end up doing. But when it comes down to it, I know that he feels like he's a lot more rejuvenated, like he still has a lot of coaching left in him. I know that the NIL has been a thorn in his side that he's been trying to figure out. So this coming down, and I had heard word that the staff had been constantly saying like look, when it comes down to this stuff, it's not just the names on the side of the buildings that everybody has to go after. They need stuff with people going out and getting sponsors and this and that, and that's where private equities could tie into that, right? And I would say that they've been pretty well aware of this and just hopeful that it would finally pass the approval and everything. So now that has, I mean, if I'm sitting back and I'm Kyle Whittingham I like I said, I know that he doesn't feel like he's anywhere done with coaching, that he can keep going. It's going to create, it's gonna make me want to stick around. Whether that actually happens or not, though, who knows? Because I mean, he still has to answer to Jamie Whittingham. I know for years he had said that he wanted to be retired when he was 65. He's 66 now. So where does the cutoff for that come, right? Because I mean, people have been talking about him, a year or two away from retiring, pretty much ever since like 2018. So it's going to be very interesting. But yeah, it's definitely an enticing piece that if I'm Whittingham, I would want to stick that out and see it for a few years and see, what what they're able to build, because I mean, they're already so close.
Yeah, this creates a fascinating dynamic as we head towards this Las Vegas Bowl with Utah and Nebraska coming up at the towards the end of the month, right here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Alex, I do want to get back to the recruiting conversation, especially with the flip of Celeste Moa in this last cycle. What insight do you have? How did Utah convince Moa to flip from Tennessee and come back to the University of Utah and eventually sign with the Utes this past signing day?
Yeah, well, they'd been working on it for well over a month, and then he ended up coming out to the Kansas State game. So the wheels were really in motion. The one thing that I had been told, even when he committed to Tennessee, is that it's not over. This thing's not over till signing day. And I also knew that when it came down to it, he was one of those guys that you're gonna allot a certain amount of money to position groups, okay, the premium ones and so on and so forth, and whether that's transfer portal or whether that's signing class, okay. He's that type, he's that talent, and also because of him being an important legacy recruit as well, being Ben's son, that there was going to be extra money there if needed to get to where they needed to be, right? Now, within all that, a lot of people have sat back and tried to say, well, Utah had the money because the Pula twins, end up going to BYU. No, if the Pula twins wanted to go to Utah would have planned and had everything in place to take all three. That wasn't going to be an issue. But Utah, and I'm sure that you were going to ask me about the Pula twins, and I know I'm kicking over to that, so I apologize.
Yeah.
But the Pula twins, I mean, everybody was pretty much under the impression that the Pula twins were heading to BYU pretty much ever since they were in BYU's locker room celebrating with them after the Utah win. So yeah, it was. I mean, anytime you can get. I mean, Moa is right around the top 50, depending on the recruiting services, and he's one of the biggest in-state recruits that has come around, especially legacy-wise, right up there with like Lander Barton. And Utah had to make this work, so it's a big piece of the puzzle, and it's going to be fun seeing where he ultimately ends up, 2-3 years from now. But I know Utah wants to start him on offense, and because his talent's just too ridiculous, and it's something that at the end there, and seeing how like some of the wide receiver decommits are going as well, you had to pay that extra to be able to get a talent like him. So that was a huge thing at the end.
Yeah, there's always the two sides to the coin when it comes to recruiting with the, you give some and some gets taken away as well. I do want to ask you, so Corner Canyon's in action tonight, playing for a national championship, 5 p.m. start on ESPN2. It's part of the Overtime National Championship. Are there any guys that Utah's targeting on this Corner Canyon team that Utes fans can tune in to ESPN2 tonight at 5 p.m. to be able to watch play for a national championship?
Oh man, you caught me off guard on that one, man, because my brain's still been so much on the 2026 that if I start spouting them, yeah. So that's a conversation for another day. But I mean, look, Corner Canyon's been such a great pipeline for Utah that there's going to be guys playing in this game they're going to be eventual Utes. So they've proven themselves to be an elite system. When it comes to the quarterback standpoint, I would say it's kind of been a little bit hit and miss lately, but when it comes down to it, they've always got the elite quarterback recruits as well. So Eric Kerr has done a phenomenal job out there, and the day when the day comes that he decides to step down, because I know that he was really only planning on coaching until his youngest was out of there. Utah football is gonna. Utah high school football is going to be missing him, because he's made such a big impact. He's one of the big reasons why this state and the recruiting that it's seen from a national level, not just from a BYU and Utah level, has really blossomed.
Overtime Nationals, Corner Canyon versus St. Francis in Maryland tonight. It's a 5 p.m. kickoff on ESPN2. Tessitore and Dan Orlovsky is going to be on the call. That's going to be an interesting game for a national title later on tonight between two powerhouses here. Of course, one in the state of Utah and one out of the state of Maryland. Alex, thank you so much for your time here this afternoon. Thanks for jumping on with us and chatting a little Utah football.
I always enjoy you, Bryce. I was happy when they said that it wasn't going to be OC, that it was going to be you. So appreciate you, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. You as well. Now, OC, he'll be back, of course, on his own program coming up a little later as he gets done with his obligations, his duties to go and call some fights in France this upcoming week. So that's where he's off to. And I'm Bryce Larson taking over for Sean O'Connell the rest of the way. Got a lot of good stuff coming your way left on the program. And by the way, before we move on from the topic of Corner Canyon and St. Francis, I had the opportunity to interview the CEO of Overtime and the Overtime Sports Group. His name's Dan Porter. He's the co-founder and CEO of Overtime Sports. You can find that interview over on the Bryce and Bianucci podcast. Just search it up. It's a fascinating conversation, not just because it's about the national championship game and the high school national championship game, which includes brands like Peyton Manning's Omaha production company that's going to be putting this on. So Eli and Peyton Manning are involved in this. You've got Tessitore on the call alongside Orlovsky. It's on ESPN2. This is a great opportunity for Corner Canyon, a local school here in the state of Utah, to be able to be featured at the national level. But he also, Dan Porter, in that conversation we had with him, goes into the private equity situation. And we specifically asked him, how does this work from a business standpoint? And he went through step by step. Look, they put a dollar amount on each fan. They really bill that out and say, this is how much we think the fans are worth and the money that they can generate. And it's somewhere in between, they think they can find the profit. He explains it a lot better than I just did there for you. So you can check out that conversation with Dan Porter on the Bryce and Bianucci podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. So we'll take a break here, and we'll come back. We'll wrap up this hour of the program on the Sean O'Connell Show, and then we'll get into a conversation with our friend Adrian Denny about the Utah Mammoth and more. How are the Utah Mammoth going to get off the schneid? That's the question I have for Adrian Denny coming up in just a little bit. Stick with us right here on the Sean O'Connell Show on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Rolling along on the Sean O'Connell Show, getting ready to wrap up the 12 o'clock hour, 12:51, up and down the Wasatch Front. No Sean O'Connell, of course. Obviously, it's me, Bryce Larson. You can hear me over on our brother station every single morning, 7 to 10 a.m., 103.9 FM and 98.3 FM. For those of you in Salt Lake and Davis County, you want to keep it locked on that 98.3 FM dial between 7 and 10 a.m. We do a lot of Utah football over there and a lot of Utah bowl game coming up. In fact, my show, the Bryson Bianucci Show, is going to be live from Las Vegas for the Utah bowl game coming up the week of Utah and Nebraska in the Las Vegas Bowl. So we'll bring you the live coverage from Las Vegas and more and get you ready for Utah and Nebraska coming up here in a couple of weeks as we head down to Las Vegas. So 103.9 and 98.3 FM is where you can find us over on the brother station, ESPN, The Fan. I do want to talk a little bit about Utah and this bowl game coming up with Nebraska and some of the turmoil that Nebraska's found itself in here in just one moment. Before we do so, want to remind you, we're live here at the Tooele Motor Company, 1141 North Main Street in Tooele. Their hours, 8:30 to 7 p.m., They're also open on Saturdays. So that's during the weekdays, but on Saturdays they're 8:30 to 6 p.m. and closed on Sunday. You could come on down, bring your donations to the Tooele Motor Company for the road home. They're looking for lightly worn, lightly used jackets, if not brand new. They're looking for coats, pants, anything to keep these kids warm during the holidays. Our friends over at the road home, they're doing a lot of great stuff. And over on Bryson Bianucci in the morning, what we do is we ask you for the next couple of days, we want you to skip that morning coffee, skip that morning drink. If it's one of the soda shops that you attend every single day and go and buy, skip that for the next couple of days. And coming up with our Road Home Mediathon, we want you to take that money and just Venmo what you would have spent on your morning coffee or on your drink throughout the day. Just Venmo that money over to the road home. It goes to a great cause. This is helping families get off the streets across the state of Utah, guys. Families is what it's all about to the road home. And last year we did so well that we were able to help them feed those families for all 365 days of the year with one mediathon during the Christmas months. It doesn't get any better than that. So check them out. You can come on down, donate at the Tooele Motor Company, or you can go online to ESPN700sports.com to learn more about that. Do want to talk for a minute just about the Utah bowl game coming up. Nebraska seems like they're going through a little bit of turmoil. They've parted ways with their defensive line coach, Terry Braden. There's also a Donovan Raiola that left from the coaching staff. That was after Dylan Raiola's little brother, the quarterback, he decommitted from Nebraska as well. So it seems like Raiola might be hitting the transfer portal. He's injured, so he's not going to be playing in this bowl game coming up between Utah and Nebraska. So it does seem like this team in Nebraska is going to be a little bit snake-bitten coming into the Las Vegas Bowl. And you can tell that by the line. DraftKings has it at 13.5 is where it opened up. It's now jumped up to 15.5. Yeah, that's in favor of your Utes as they get ready to take on a 7-5 Nebraska Cornhuskers team. ESPN Analytics gives Utah an 80.4% chance to win this football game. And right now, I haven't really seen or heard of a lot of opt-outs in this bowl game. James Peterson, have you seen any opt-outs for this bowl game coming up? Of course, besides the injured guys that won't be playing in this bowl game, have you seen any guys that are planning to opt out?
Nothing official yet, and we've had a couple of conversations with Devin Dampier since the season ended too, and he hasn't said anything totally official. Although we are all expecting Bryce, and I think you're in this too, for the tackles, Spencer Fano, Caleb Lomo, to probably opt out, but they haven't made an announcement yet. Maybe they will be like, hey, we want to play one more game with our guys. But I expect those guys to opt out for Utah. I'm not sure we're going to see a ton of others because I don't know beyond those guys how many players on the Utes roster have a high enough draft grade at this point to be like, you know what, I better not risk playing. I think for the rest of the guys who will probably be entering the draft or have no more eligibility left, they probably look at this game as an opportunity to get more tape for the NFL scouts, to put some more good things on tape to maybe help their draft stock. So we'll see. I expect there to be some, but nothing has come out. Obviously, you got like Isaac Wilson, just not that he's a notable player on this year's roster, but like guys like him announced that they're entering the transfer portal in a couple of weeks. So you don't expect him to be down there in Vegas with the team. But no one really notable yet. But again, I would expect Fano and Lomo to probably opt out.
Yeah, anybody that's going to be a first-round draft pick in the National Football League this year's draft is probably going to be gone, and that would be Lomu and Spencer Fano coming up here in this bowl game. We'll keep an eye on it. We'll keep you up to date right here on the home of the Utes, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Okay, joining us now live at the Tooele Motor Company, it is Riley. He is the sales manager here. 1141 North Main Street in Tooele. Riley, what can you tell us about this dealership? Glad to have you on, first of all.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Well, first and foremost, of course, being part of the biggest dealership in this community and employing most people in this community is a big deal for us. Now, sponsoring the road home's always been something this dealership's taken great pride in, and having people bring tons of gifts, so blankets, jackets, coats, anything that people can think of that others may be in need of, we're very appreciative of. And then on the Chevrolet side, we're doing a special this month on supplier pricing on every single new Chevy on the lot. And that's, Traxxas, HDs, Silverados, whatever you have. And on top of that, we're also doing the 5 years of free maintenance on any vehicle purchase. So that's not just on the Chevrolet brand. That's going to be for Stellantis as well as Ford and any used vehicle on the ground as well.
Wow. Yeah, I've got a Chevy Impala that I like to drive around. I'd love to have that 5-year maintenance on that bad boy. I should have came here and bought it.
It's just gas and go is what I call it. Just no worries about maintenance. You come with the warranty, so it's just filling up the vehicle and driving with smiles for miles, as we like to say.
That's great. What's your favorite part about just being part of the caravan of taking these donations from the different Rocky Mountain Chevy dealers to the road home and what you guys have been able to participate in the last couple of years?
Really, it's just the response from the community and seeing the look on people's faces when we have just a grundle of gifts to give back to the community. It definitely has an impact on people's lives, and they see the difference that not only makes in their lives but their community's lives. So it's kind of a follow the leader at that point. You see somebody doing something right, and you kind of want to follow along and be a part of it.
All right, these Chevy dealers will take your donations through the close of business on December the 17th, and the next day it will be the caravan as they take all those generous donations and make those deliveries to the road homes, Midvale Family Center. Riley, thanks for jumping on with us here.
Of course, thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
No problem. We will take a break live from the Tooele Motor Company, and coming up next, we're going to talk with our good friend Adrian Denny. Between the pipes we go as we talk a little bit about the Utah Mammoth and more. Some Utah hockey comes your way next right here on the Sean O'Connell Show. I'm Bryce Larson filling in for Sean O'Connell this afternoon. You can find us right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right, hour number 3, the 1 o'clock hour, right here on the Sean O'Connell Show. No Sean O'Connell today. I'm filling in for him. We did have him in the first hour, but he had to take off to go to the airport. He's headed to France to call some fights. So good luck and safe travels to OC as he heads out of the country. He'll be back on the Sean O'Connell Show coming up, I believe, next Monday. So we'll see OC coming here in just a little bit. The 1 o'clock hour, it's going to be Between the Pipes with our friend Adrian Denny. That's always brought to you by Aladdin Industries and Valley Plumbing. And before we get into that conversation, just one reminder. We are here at the Tooele Motor Company, 1141 North Main Street in Tooele. You can come on down and donate blankets, hats, coats, warm clothes, any type of gifts you want to give as they take them all the way up until December the 17th. On the 18th, they will be delivering those gifts to the road home with those families that are experiencing homelessness. It's a great initiative, one of our favorites that we're part of every single year. And, of course, our friends at the Rocky Mountain Chevy dealers as well. Let's jump out to the ESPN 700 hotline. Welcome in Adrian Denny, the host of the Mammoth pregame show over part of the SCG Network and more. It's always brought to you by Aladdin Industries and Valley Plumbing. Adrian, glad to have you on. How you doing?
Bryce, I am a horrible, horrible person, and I owe you an apology. You sent me a text a couple weeks ago, and you were at the Delta Center to watch the game, and I was running around, and I was a disaster and a mess like usual, and I never got back to you. And we lost the game 5-1, and I never got back to you again, and I apologize. So sorry for not texting you back. I wish we would have had a chance to catch up, but that's on me. So thanks for having me on, and please accept my apology.
Hey, totally fine. I accept your apology only because you remember all of that. Like, I had already forgotten about it, and you remembered it, so shout out to you.
I've been meaning to get back to you. I'm like, we haven't seen each other since because I didn't text him back, and then we lost the game 5-1, and it just ruined everything.
Yes, that was against the Vegas. That was against the Golden Knights. That's a good hockey team right now, and Utah's ran into a lot of good hockey teams. And it hasn't been a lot of great news. Coming off of 2 wins against the Ducks and the Canucks, they're back to their losing ways and losing to the Flames and Kings in back-to-back games, 2-0 and 4-2 the other night. Adrian, what just from like a 30,000-foot view, what's going on with this Utah Mammoth squad, and what do they need to improve upon to see the wins start stacking up?
I think tonight the message is we need to start on time. Against Calgary, wrapping up that trip, trying to make it 3 in a row. They gave up a goal 16 seconds in, and they were playing catch-up the rest of the way. And they played a pretty decent game. It was fine, but they were trailing the whole game, and it just kind of changes the complexion of everything. And then against Los Angeles on Monday night, they're back home, give up 2 goals off of breakaways in the first 10 minutes of the contest, 2 goals in 2 minutes and 18 seconds. And they originated out of the Utah offensive zone, and it just kills you when that happens because the Mammoth are such a shutdown defensive team. They don't allow anything, but then something comes out of the offensive zone that you're doing something good on, and then you give up a goal. And on the first play, Dylan Gunther was just driving to the net, backhanded it through the crease, it banged off the wall, perfect bounce, and the Kings were able to push it ahead and take a 1-0 lead. And then just 2 minutes later, there's a puck battle in the left wing corner at the Utah offensive end, and they're battling for the puck, and the Kings knock it away. It goes to the opposite corner, and once again, Kevin Fiala is there for the Kings, pushes it up ahead, another breakaway goal, 2-0. Andre Tourigny wasn't happy with that goal. And you give up one of those goals, fine, whatever. You're still down 1-0, but to be down 2-0 in those circumstances, 10 minutes into a game was a killer. And the Mammoth, the rest of the way, outscored LA 2-1 before the empty net goal. They felt pretty good about it, but it comes back down to the basics here. You got to start on time. So they had a meeting about it yesterday, and it was the focus today, and it was the message of a morning skate down at Southtown. Like, we got to start on time. But, Bryce, I will tell you this. The schedule, and I'm big on schedules and rest and just compartmentalizing everything. The Mammoth have played the most road games in the NHL, and it catches up to you. They had 2 4-game trips and a 6-game trip. And one thing that Bear did point out today at morning skate was how much he likes the energy of the guys. And you look at that being able to be home, get settled in, sleep in your own bed, try to get back into your routine. And I think that's been a huge part of the first 31 games, 32 games for the Mammoth is you've been on the road so often, and it's just a different kind of energy, and you're not in your routine, and you feel it in your legs, especially when you get to the end of a 6-game trip. But that's one thing Bear did bring up today that I think we can look back at. First home game after a road trip is always a challenge. I thought the Mammoth were okay on Monday. The start we didn't like, but hearing Bear say he liked where the energy was, I think that's something the fans will notice tonight at the Delta Center. Yeah,
not too long ago, Utah made quite a few changes on the defensive side. You bring up Maverick Lamoureux, and we see him out there getting ice time and whatnot. Was that in response to injuries that have started to pile up like we saw a season ago, or was that more of a change that they wanted to make due to the team not performing as well as they could? And then in a second part of this question, would you put more of the blame on the goaltending and the goalkeeping that we've seen so far this year, or that defensive blue line that needs to step up and be a little bit better? Specifically, I think Mikhail Sergachev is leaving out there a little bit more to be desired on the defensive side of the ice as well. Yeah, so you call up Maverick Lamoureux and Daniil Booth. That was a direct reaction to the 6-3 loss to San Jose. That road trip got off to a really tough start. And it started, getting to Dallas on Thanksgiving night and the news that Clayton Keller's father had passed away. That was a huge emotional weight on this team that just took everything kind of away from hockey. But then you have hockey on back-to-back nights, and they lost 2 games by a single goal. They were ahead in Dallas, and they lost 1-0 in St. Louis. And you go to San Jose, and you think you're in a good spot. And we had heard that the energy and the team was doing great and felt good going into that San Jose game, and all of a sudden you lose the game 6-3, and it's like, all right, we need to start from scratch here. Number one, they hadn't had a practice day in 2 weeks since before I ignored your text against Vegas. The day after that was their last practice day. So big to have a good practice day. Calling up those guys, they were ready to go. That was the good thing about it, is it wasn't a reaction that spurred something that was impulsive. Lamoureux and Daniil Booth in the American Hockey League had played really well, and they were in a spot that the general manager, Bill Armstrong, was comfortable. Okay, these guys are ready for the NHL. Let's go. And call them up, insert them in the lineup. Booth 6'5", Lamoureux 6'7", so you add the size there. You add the youth, the energy that they kind of bring, and it was a good injection. And I have been so impressed with Maverick Lamoureux coming back up after, he played 15 games last year here. He was ticketed back to the AHL. He wasn't ready, but Utah was so thin defensively. It was the one option they had. So kind of put him in a spot they wish they didn't. Then he gets hurt. He's been in the AHL for the last year, finishing last season, starting this year. And it's amazing to see him between training camp and now, just the way he plays with the confidence, but the discipline on his puck decisions and the penalties that he's cut out of his game has been great. And he's playing with Ian Cole, who's perfect for a young 21-year-old D-man to play with. To your question about goaltending, November was rough. The Mammoth needed another save or two a game, and when 80% of the games in the NHL are decided by a goal or tied or within a goal in the third period, and you're not getting a save or two a night, it kills you. November was rough, but coming into December, starting in that Anaheim game, Vancouver, Calgary, Monday was fine. We've seen Krelvenuk and Vitek Vanacek start making that. Okay, that's one save we needed at a key moment. You're seeing that again. Defensively, the Mammoth allowed the fewest shots in the league. Has there been issues with the blue liners? You mentioned Sergachev. I would say the issues defensively have been with the forwards when those things have happened, when the pucks have come out of the offensive zone and ended up into an odd man rush situation or breakaway, ending up in the back. I think the D have been fine. Adding Lamoureux was just an injection of energy. Oli Mata
may have struggled the first month or two. He's hurt now, so I think the D are in a pretty good spot. Daniil Boot and Mikhail Sergachev have played together for the first, after the first week and a half for about a month. I think the coaching staff thought before they sent Simonson back to the AHL, let's take that weight off of Sergachev's shoulders and let him not have to worry about watching out for Boot in some particular situations.
That's really good insight. Of course, we're talking with Adrian Denny, and that's always brought to you by Aladdin Industries and Valley Plumbing right here on the Sean O'Connell Show. And Adrian, I do want to shift over to Logan Cooley. We got the news that he's out indefinitely with the lower body injury. What information can you give us on the Logan Cooley situation? And is this something that Utah fans should be really worried about?
What I can add to that, Bryce, is I got the exact same news 30 seconds before it was tweeted by the team. So I had the advantage of being more depressed for 30 seconds than I guess the rest of Utah, who got the benefit there, not having to have that on their shoulders for 30 more seconds. Yeah, lower body injury. We were really, really worried after that St. Louis game when he took that knee-to-knee hit from Alexei Torovchenko. We started then getting reports from some of the national media that it wasn't the worst-case scenario. And then Friday in Vancouver, going down the stretch, he takes a great feed from Dylan Gunther. He's going to the net. He's one-on-one. Quinn Hughes, best player for Vancouver, trying to race over to stop him. And stuff like that just sometimes happens in hockey. And with Logan Cooley, as fast as he plays, it was just unfortunate. The timetable indefinitely. So I don't know. You could read into that, right, a number of ways, right? Indefinitely is indefinitely something we're waiting on. It was more of a knee bruise. It sounded like it from St. Louis. Was that does that need to heal? And we don't know the timetable, right? Those are just kind of the areas you can go in that, of which I have zero information on what it would be. And if I did have information, I would need somebody else to interpret it for me, just based on science and medical stuff. It's generally pretty confusing for me. And if you'd see me at the doctor's office, you'd totally understand. But boy, this might not be his best area.
All right, give us a little preview tonight. The Panthers come to town. Florida's good. That's an understatement with these Panthers. And, of course, they're coming off of a great season last year. What can we expect with the Florida Panthers in town for this one, a 7 p.m. start?
Yeah, Panthers finished their last homestand. They won back-to-back Saturday, Sunday. That got them back over 500. They've been hovering around 500 for the start of the season, even with the fact that they've played the exact opposite ratio of home to road games that Utah has, even though they've had a couple long trips out west, or one trip out west and one trip that was a long trip up in the East Coast. So they've kind of played road games in bunches. They're on a trip now that starts Utah tonight, Colorado tomorrow, and then they're going to go to Dallas and Tampa Bay. So they're starting a stretch here that's challenging, but with Florida, like Vegas, like Dallas, like Colorado, for me, even when they're missing their two top leaders, like their captain Alexander Barkov and Matthew Tkachuk, one of their other major factors in them winning back-to-back Stanley Cups, they've still got that identity. So they're still playing, the brand of hockey that you see them play. They're just missing those two guys. They've been in Salt Lake since after their game on Sunday night. They came out here, got away for a little bit, spent a couple days up in Park City, and enjoyed our greatest snow on earth, or what we have of it right now. But Florida's always a challenge. But I think the way Utah finished the game on Monday against LA, they laid down a franchise record 32 hits, 7 of them from Jack McBain, and really were able to employ a good physical style from their third and fourth lines. I think that's something they want to continue against Florida tonight. Utah's been great about not taking penalties. Florida draws a lot of penalties. So head coach Andre Turdy was telling us after morning skate today, just some things that Utah wants to make sure that they do to not put Florida on the power play and keep that power play ratio where it was on Monday night, where they drew 3 of the 4 power plays, scored a power play goal, were perfect on the penalty kill on their only shorthanded situation. Probably should have drawn 6 or 7 penalties the way they were working, but sometimes, man, you get in hockey and it's you got human beings as officials that get a little self-conscious when power plays start going more than, a 3-to-1 ratio.
Yeah, how about that guy Brad Marchand, huh? He's coming to Utah again. The last time, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, last time he was here, he was a member of the Boston Bruins. He didn't come again with the Panthers later on in the season last year, but I could be wrong on that. What does Utah have to do to slow Brad Marchand down? And also, I say this with the most respect in the world, Adrian. Why is he the most disliked player in the NHL right now?
He just rat is probably not the nicest thing to say, but he's just kind of a little rat. Like he's a freaking hockey player. Like, and he's he'll get under your skin. You saw him in the Columbus Blue Jackets timeout huddle a week or so ago in a game that they won 7-6 in overtime. So he's a rat if he's not on your team, but if he's on your team, you love him. And to control him and slow him down, I think the Mammoths just need to play tough in front of the net, because that's where Florida goes and that's where they draw penalties. And if you can just get a presence there, I think you're in the best spot to win. When we saw Florida, the only other time we see them in Salt Lake, it was, again, Utah fell behind early, right? 2-0, but it was a 2-1 game in the third period. Panthers pushed it over the top with an empty net goal or two late. So, again, you go back to starting on time, but Utah played a couple of good games against the Panthers last year. That game that was 2-1 forever here, and then they went to overtime with them in South Florida in March. So it's a big test as Utah strives and looks to become a team that can play against playoff teams like this and win games. It's a big adjustment for the Mammoths. They're being treated differently now that it's kind of gotten around. You see the standings; they're in a playoff spot. Teams adjust you, teams play you harder, and that's going to be a big one here going up against teams like the Panthers.
All right, Adrian, the final thing I have for you before we get you out of here. So I was just barely in Dallas for the Big 12 championship game. The night before the game, the Dallas Stars were playing against the San Jose Sharks. We decided to go down, check it out a little bit. I didn't make the mistake, but I was repping the Utah Mammoth. I wore my hoodie. We went into the team store immediately. I didn't have 2 seconds that I stepped into that store and just got roasted as soon as I walked through that door and got a lot of things said to me that were not very nice. When you go around the NHL, has Utah started to develop these rivalries, and which team do you think hates Utah the most around the NHL?
I think the Colorado Avalanche were really self-conscious last time they were here, along with their fans, that, oh boy, we've got a rival now. This is a rivalry. This is a team. So I'd say Colorado. They were pretty shaken up. They were pretty rattled and flustered at that game. But that's interesting you say that. It's the NHL. Teams are represented all over. You see jerseys from teams that aren't playing in every building you go in. And as I walk around the concourse at the Delta Center, I feel like it's pretty hospitable, pretty nice. And I think there's some venues in Utah that aren't as hospitable and nice in college football when the opposing team or other teams are around. So I think we got a nice, friendly atmosphere for that. And I think if a fan from an opposing team walked into the Delta Center team store, they'd be greeted as somebody that wanted to talk hockey with them, just to be honest with you. So sorry that happened.
Hey, it's all right. They were just asking me if I was lost and needed directions to where the Mammoth were playing that night. So it's fine. It's all right.
I can't see how somebody would think you were lost, so that's fair, I suppose.
All right. Hey, Adrian, thank you so much for jumping on with me here this afternoon. I'm looking forward to that text message back from you coming up.
Yeah, I will text you back as soon as I'm off the phone.
Sounds good. Take care, my friend, and good luck on the pregame show.
Thanks,
Have
a good one, man.
That's Adrian Denny, and that's that conversation between the pipes, always brought to you by Aladdin Industries and Valley Plumbing, right here on the Sean O'Connell Show. I'm Bryce Larson, filling in for Sean O'Connell for the next, we're going to go, 40 minutes or so left here. That means you've got time still to come down to the Tooele Motor Company. Join me at 1141 North Main Street here in Tooele. So we're looking for those donations to the road home. It's blankets, it's hoodies, it's coats, jackets, boots, whatever it may be to help keep these kids warm, and it's all about the kids this holiday season. Is we're trying to continue to get those gifts for the holiday season that these Chevy Rocky Mountain Chevy dealers are going to take down to the road home. So you have up until the close of business on December the 17th, and then the next day, Thursday the 18th, they're going to take all the generous donations and make those deliveries to the Road Homes Midvale Family Center. So it's all for a great cause. If you come on down, I still have some pizza left. A lot of people have come through and stolen a lot of this pizza, but you can come on down, get yourself some pizza. We've got an opportunity to enter in to win some tickets coming up for some basketball games and whatnot. So come and join us, 1141 North Main Street here in Tooele at the Tooele Motor Company. Coming up next, we are going to get into the Daily Dump, the top headlines around the world of sports, and more. And that's all yours right here on the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 792.1 FM. We're going to get into the Daily Dump. We're going to talk a little bit about the top headlines around the world of sports and more right here on the Sean O'Connell Show. No Sean O'Connell today. He just barely took off to go to the airport, so I'm sitting in for him. My name's Bryce Larson. You can find me every single weekday morning, 7 to 10 a.m., over on the brother station, 103.9 FM, 98.3 FM. It's all part of the Utah ESPN radio network. So if you want a little local morning show to listen to on your way to work, wherever you're headed, you can join myself and Jordan Bianucci, 7 to 10 a.m., right over there. And, of course, on the Bryson Bianucci podcast as well. We're live down here at the Tooele Motor Company this afternoon, 1141 North Main Street in Tooele, as we are looking for some donations to the road home. Blankets, hats, jackets, whatever it may be, you can bring them on down to any Rocky Mountain Chevy dealer. In this case, it's the Tooele Motor Company here in Tooele. But they're going to be able to take all of those to the road home and give those as Christmas donations and gifts to those at the road home. That's all part of our partnership with the road home this year. And, of course, we're going to have our road home mediathon coming up on the 18th and 19th of December. And what we're doing over on Bryson Bianucci in the mornings is asking you guys to skip the morning coffee, maybe the afternoon swig drink, or whatever your drink of choice may be, and take that money that you would have spent on those drinks and just donate it to the road home directly. That money goes to helping feed families that are inside those care centers that are struggling with homelessness and affected by homelessness. They can feed those families for up to a full year with those donations that they receive throughout this giving time. So that's what we're asking you to do, and we'll give you the Venmo and everything over on ESPN700sports.com. You can also check us out December 18th and 19th live from the Connie Crosby Family Resource Center, coming up as part of our Road Home Mediathon that we're a part of right here on the Utah ESPN Radio Network. Let's jump into the Daily Dump. That's brought to you by our friends over at Valley Plumbing and Drain Cleaning. They now do heating and air. Make sure you go and check them out at valleyplumbing.com. They're going to be giving away a furnace to a family in need this winter season, so you can get in on that on their social media platforms and also over at valleyplumbing.com. So shout out to our friends at Valley Plumbing for bringing us the Daily Dump here this morning. A couple of different headlines we want to hit on. Let's jump over to Major League Baseball with the hot stove. Pete Alonso finalizing a 5-year, $155 million deal with the Orioles. The Mets did not make an offer to their former franchise slugger, according to The Athletic. That's big-time baseball news. The Mets were one of the top spenders. They had the second or third highest payroll in all of Major League Baseball last year, James. That's pretty surprising that they're letting Pete Alonso walk out the door.
Yeah, it is surprising that they did not at least try to retain him. 38 homers last year. He hit .278, which is like a good batting average year for him too. He is now in his 30s, so maybe that was just like, hey, we expect that to be the peak for the rest of your career, and if that's the peak, we don't think that we don't think it's worth spending the money that the Orioles are spending for this. But as a Red Sox fan, Bryce, Pete Alonso and Kyle Schwarber were the two power bats that were rumored to be linked, the guys that the Red Sox would be going after this offseason. Schwarber staying with the Phillies, that came through yesterday, and now Pete Alonso going to the division rival for the Red Sox and Baltimore Orioles. I'm not feeling so good about this. The Red Sox feel like they're a power hitter like Alonso, like Schwarber, away from being maybe a true World Series contender if the pitching holds up like it did last year and the other bats in the lineup do what they did. Now it feels like who else could they get this year? It feels like they're going to they're going to fall short of getting that power bat that they need. So I'm not feeling so good about this.
Yeah, that one a little bit scary for the Red Sox fans out there these days. And what's been going on with the Red Sox? Afraid to spend some money while the Yankees and the Dodgers are out there doing what the Yankees and Dodgers do. But the Red Sox have kind of fallen behind the eight ball when it comes to hey, how about you appease the fan base a little bit? Are they more worried about making some money over there than actually winning baseball games, James?
They might be, and yeah, I'm obviously not a fan of that. I mean, they did bringing in Bregman last year was a step, it felt like, in the right direction. Of course, Bregman opted out, so they still need to figure out retaining him. If they're not able to get, and I'll have to look and see. Those were the two big middle lineup power bats that I was really the only two I was really paying attention to as free agents. So maybe there's others out there that they could land. We're gonna have to get Jordan on the phone or something.
Well, one I can throw out there for you. How about Marcell Ozuna, the Braves DH that they're not going to bring back? How about him?
Ozuna. I mean, it feels like he's. To be fair, it feels like he's a lot more of a drop off compared to those other two. But hey, we'll take Ozuna. If
maybe might be a good money play over there if the Red Sox are trying to save some money.
Yeah, I don't know. I in the summer when they traded Devers away at the deadline, or a couple weeks before the deadline, the reports came out that they did that to save money, and I filled in on the show, and I snarkily put out the tweet: trading your best player to save money is blank. Good, never good, or sometimes it works out. I don't think it's ever good, or Bryce. And they did it now. They did it with Mookie Betts in 2019. Then they did it with Rafael Devers, and now it feels like maybe we're in a free agency where they're making fringe deals to acquire good good starters. Now they got like 12 starters. Like maybe I'm reading that they're maybe be able to package that for a bat that they need. I don't know. I'm not feeling too optimistic about it. This is a bummer to lose out on the two best power hitters on the market in free agency. And I just love Kyle Schwarber too. So it would have been fun to have him back in a Red Sox uniform. And Pete Alonso would have been my second choice, and going to Baltimore. So we'll see what the Red Sox do. Your Pirates, I mean, they're not
traded for the password.
Yeah,
for the Red Sox.
Oh, that's true. They got the password. They're not typically a team that you hear a lot in free agency, but they made that trade for the password. Man, his name is insane. What was his name? Justin, but it's spelled with like an X in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. They did sign Gregory Soto as well just recently, so they're investing a little bit, but we'll see.
Paul Skeen's making a little bit of – was he making you a little nervous at the end of the year with the, hey, I want to be traded to the Yankees probably stuff? That's died down though, right?
No, he was asked about that in a press conference, and he said he has no idea where any of that came from. That's all social media fodder is essentially what he said. And then came up and said, well, you know what, this franchise needs to invest to make me happy. That's pretty much what he said. It's like, if they really want me to stick around, if they invest in this roster, I'm more than happy to stay here. But I don't blame him. If I agree with them, in fact. If they don't invest in the guys around him, why would he want to stick around?
Yeah, and if he's being true to his word, where what that sounds like is maybe he would take less money than what the Dodgers or Yankees or Red Sox, if they decide to spend money again at some point, could offer him when he's a free agent, the first time he's a free agent, then if you just invest in the roster, if you're the Pirates, you should be like, okay, we can invest in the roster. Especially if you're not going to take as much money, we can use some of that money you're not going to take to field a good team around you. I would think that would be good news for the Pirates to hear him say that.
And it's great for Pirates fans in general, if there's any out there listening at this moment in time, that he's being so out in the media, out in the public about that as well, because that's putting pressure on the franchise, saying, hey, this is on you guys. If you don't go and invest around me, then, yeah, I will eventually leave, and it won't be my fault that I'm going to leave down the road. And we'll see. Hopefully that changes the way that the Pirates organization has always, operated under Bob Nutting at this time.
And then they brought in the password. They're like, hey, invest in the roster. How about this guy?
and Gregory Soto, two
Gregory
big-time
Soto.
pieces. We'll see how the Pirates do this upcoming season. I do want to jump over to the National Football League. How about this news on Phillip Rivers? 44 years old, brought in. He signed to the practice squad, but there is reports out there that he is an option to start Sunday for the Colts. This comes after multiple injuries to the quarterback room for the Indianapolis Colts. James, you're a Colts fan. How does this make you feel?
Man, this segment is like why James doesn't feel good about his favorite teams across a couple different sports, isn't it? No, listen, I was a fan of Phillip Rivers. I think he had a terrific career, especially with the Chargers. I didn't like when they brought him in 2020. So 5 years later, and he hasn't played since that season when, yes, he led them to the playoffs. I think that, if I'm not mistaken, that was the last time they made the playoffs. So there was that in 2020. But I was just like, we need more than a Band-Aid at quarterback here. And that's obviously what this would be the rest of this season, as everyone else is injured. 5 years removed from playing, he's 44, and that's the guy. Yeah, let's sign that guy as a free agent. I know that there's probably lots of people going, well, hey, Joe Flacco did that and led the Browns to the playoffs a couple years ago. Flacco was on a roster the previous season. This is beyond.
That comes to my mind. James, if you were to choose between two former Indianapolis Colts quarterbacks that are both in retirement, would you rather have Phillip Rivers or would you rather have Matt Ryan come out of retirement and come play for the Colts?
Did you? Well, I guess you probably didn't hear it because you were on the air. Dominique Foxworth joined the Dan Patrick show this morning.
Okay.
And Dan asked him not this question, but he asked him more likely to be a Hall of Famer, Phillip Rivers or Matt Ryan. Dominique Foxworth, kind of after he talked it through, he ended up settling on Phillip Rivers. I think in this case, I think the answer to both these questions is Matt Ryan, though. Even though Rivers was better on his stint with the Colts than Matt Ryan was with the Colts. I mean, he at least played a lot more recently than Phillip Rivers did. And as far as the Hall of Fame question, like, come on, MVP, All-Pro. The stats are all there for Matt Ryan. I know how you feel about this. I don't
100% Hall of Famer.
Like, I don't think that Phillip Rivers is even a Hall of Famer, let alone more of a Hall of Famer than a guy who won an MVP and went farther in the playoffs than Rivers has ever gone.
62,000 total passing yards throughout his career, too. Matt Ryan, 100% Hall of Famer. Put him in.
Yeah, you'd probably say if you were the Colts, you'd prefer Matt Ryan than Phillip Rivers too, right?
Well, it depends. Because Matt Ryan
Neither
did struggle.
Neither of them are a good option at this point.
He might be a better option than the 44-year-old that hasn't played for 5 years.
Yeah.
But he did struggle in his time as an Indianapolis Colt. He did put the ball on the ground in a crazy amount of times and threw interceptions and just turned the ball over way too much. Matt Ryan did with the Colts. So I don't know where I would go with that.
What I don't understand is, like, just pick an XFL guy who is not who's probably on a practice squad somewhere, someone's practice squad, or even if they're not on a practice squad, they're not even anywhere near an NFL roster. At least they've played, like, a few months ago, they played professional football. I don't understand this other than they're obviously trying to make a headline here, and I don't get that when you're like a win or two away from being a playoff team at this point. You still have a winning record. You still have a shot at the division, and I'll say this: I don't care about them winning a division and losing in the first round, but as a fan. But if I'm working for the team, like, yeah, let's get in the playoffs. Let's win one. Let's get a guy who can help us win one or two more games. Phillip Rivers is not that.
Yeah, no doubt.
Hopefully Riley Leonard is healthy enough to play, and I can't believe I'm saying that. That's where the Colts quarterback situation is. Riley Leonard is the hope, is their playoff hopes. Yeah, there we go.
All right, final thing I want to bring up in the Daily Dump here. Corner Canyon playing for a high school national championship. Have you ever heard that before? Yeah. Overtime Nationals High School National Championship. Later on tonight. It's on ESPN2. Now, this is bigger than you think it is. Tessitore is going to be on the call alongside Dan Orlovsky. The Manning brothers, Peyton and Eli, they're involved in this. Their production company, Omaha Productions, are putting it on alongside ESPN and Overtime Nationals. And this is all coming your way as Corner Canyon takes on St. Francis Academy from Under Armour Stadium in Maryland. And that's going to be on your television on ESPN2 at 5 p.m. Mountain Time this evening. Pretty interesting time in all of sports where you're going to see Jackson Dart's little brother, Diesel Dart. He's a junior. He's uncommitted. Helaman Kasuga, he's going to end up at Texas A&M. He's a quarterback. He's a senior on this Corner Canyon team. And Kai Meza, he's committed to California. He's one of the wide receivers that plays for Corner Canyon. These guys are really good, and they're going to get their opportunity to win a national championship in what's being dubbed as the first ever high school football national championship opportunity here, James.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's awesome for high school football in the state of Utah to be getting this kind of platform. And once again, it's obviously awesome for Corner Canyon. And once again, they are the ones giving Utah high school football this kind of platform, this national platform. What was it? Was it earlier this year they played the Broward County team in Florida and took them down? This is awesome. There's so many people in this state that cover high school football, yourself included, who have been telling people, anyone they have a chance to tell, hey, the quality of football is great here, and this is a chance for nationally fans to be able to get on board with that. And hopefully Corner Canyon plays really well, wins this national championship.
All right, that is your Daily Dump brought to you by Valley Plumbing and Drain Cleaning. Check them out online at valleyplumbing.com. Just look for the truck with the duck. We'll take a break. Topical trivia comes up next. Your chance to win 4 tickets to the advanced screening to see Avatar Fire and Ash at Jordan Commons coming up on the 16th of December. That's all next right here on the Sean O'Connell Show. I'm Bryce Larson filling in. One more segment to go before we hand it off to The Drive with Spence Checketts. That all comes your way next right here on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. We are live from the Tooele Motor Company, 1141 North Main Street in Tooele. Getting ready to wrap up the Sean O'Connell show. Obviously, I'm not Sean O'Connell. I am Bryce Larson filling in for OC here this afternoon as he took off to go to the airport. He's got some PFL duties he's taking care of in France. So you got me for a couple more minutes before we pass it off to the drive with Spence Checketts coming up here on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. We're here with the Rocky Mountain Chevy dealers at Tooele Motor Company as we're looking for gifts to have you come down and drop off. Those gifts are going to go to the road home. People are busy this time of year, but they want to do something good. This helps make it easy for the people to donate by offering drop-off points at each one of these dealerships across the state of Utah. Any Rocky Mountain Chevy dealership is where you can take those donations to. Look, it's all about the road home, and their mission is to help people step out of homelessness and back into the community. And they believe housing is the solution to homelessness, and that is what our goal is here. We want to help those people, not only with the gifts that we're giving, and a lot of those gifts are going to go to the children that are part of these families that are looking to step out of homelessness and get back into regular life. And that's what this is all about this holiday season. So check them out today, ESPN700sports.com. It's got more information there. And then, of course, our radiothon, our mediathon coming up with the road home on the 18th and 19th of December. You'll be able to donate in many different ways. And one thing we're doing on my show, Bryson Bianucci, over on 103.9 and 98.3 FM from 7 to 10 a.m. every single morning, is we're asking you to skip the coffee every single day, or maybe skip the drink that you get down at the local drink store, and take that money you would have spent and just Venmo it on over to the road home. That money goes directly to helping families eat every single day. And last year we were able to raise enough money that every single day of the year they were able to feed those families inside the road home. 365 days last year. That's how much money we were able to raise for the road home. So just something to keep in mind as we get closer and closer to that mediathon, and we want to thank our friends here at the Tooele Motor Company as we wrap up the show. Now it's your chance to win some tickets, and today we're giving away the 4-pack of tickets to see the pre-screening of Avatar, Fire, and Ash. This one's going to be at Jordan Commons coming up on the 16th of December. All you have to do is text the right answer into the text-in line at 877-353-0700, and we will pick a winner from there. The question today for the 4-pack of tickets, we talked with Scott Padgett earlier in the show, the Mississippi State assistant coach, former Jazzman from 2000 to 2003. What was his favorite jersey? He's got it framed up in his house. Which jersey that he wore for the Utah Jazz was his favorite in terms of the color scheme and whatnot? He's got it framed up in his house that he has there with the Utah Jazz. You text that answer in correctly, we'll choose a winner at 877-353-0700 right there on the text-in line. James, it's been a pleasure, my friend. It's always great sitting in for OC, and I'm glad to be able to be here with our friends at the Tooele Motor Company. Any final thoughts from you as we wrap this thing up?
I was just I'm going to bring this off-air question on air. You had told me that when Scott Padgett, the year that Scott Padgett's first year in Utah was the year you were born, right?
Yes,
so it was also your first year in Utah. In a completely different way. So you probably don't remember any of the years that Scott Padgett played for the Jazz. So you don't remember what he looked like in his favorite jersey.
Nope, I do not. I don't really remember a lot of Jazz games, actually seeing Jazz games. Obviously, now we have the ability to go back and watch the tapes. But physically being able to watch it myself until at least Darren Williams came around. Right?
Yeah, okay.
So it's a couple years after.
Yeah, that was a couple years later when D. Will came through, and that totally makes sense. You would have been around 10 years old, and I think that's about when most of us or sports fans really retain our memories. Our first memories of being sports fans is probably around that time. I think so. As far as Jazz memories go, some of my earliest was the '98 finals. I was 6, but I think as I've thought back to that, I mean, I do have a good memory. There's that, but also I think that I remember some of that because it was such a big stage. And if like when you were 6, would have been around Scott Padgett's last year, the Jazz were losing in the first round.
Yep.
Right? And Malone and Stockton were shells of themselves at that point and about to retire. So I asked you that off air because I'm like, yeah, you would have been around the same time that my first memories of the Jazz, but Jazz being in the finals and Jazz barely making the playoffs a lot more memorable when they're in the finals, no matter what age you are.
My favorite, one of my favorites, I should say. I should be careful using that word. One of my favorite memories watching the Jazz when I really was locked in and tuned in as a young kid was the Rajah Bell game winner over LeBron James. That one, that's
sweet.
That's one that I remember vividly from, just the younger years of my life, you could say. So, yeah.
Raja was fun over those couple of years with the Jazz, and then he parlayed that into a really good run with the Suns, and he got a lot more national attention because they were going deeper in the playoffs. But he doesn't have those great years with the Suns if the Jazz don't give him an opportunity to shine the way he did. So yeah, I was always a big Rajah Bell fan. That's a good call.
All right, before we say so long and farewell from the Sean O'Connell Show, do you want to give one more shout-out? Tooele Motor Company, 1141 North Main Street here in Tooele. You can still stop by all the way through the close of business on December the 17th and drop off those gifts. The next day, they'll take them down to the road home. One more shout-out. Shout-out to Spence Checketts on his new gig and his commitment last night. I'm sure he'll tell you all about it. A little bit of a tease for you with the drive with Spence Checketts coming up next. So congratulations on the commitment, Spence Checketts. We'll throw it over to him. That's all coming your way next right here on Utah's #1 sports talk, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.